inform about the capital project at Manans School District. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome. So the purpose of this evening is to speak to the planning and then the ultimate project that we'll be proposing to voters in May. During tonight's presentation, I'm going to provide a little bit of context and background as to where we have been historically as a building and some of the information that impacted our decisions as we made a recommendation to the Board of Education that the board ultimately adopted, and that will go before voters in May. In addition, we have representatives here this evening from CS Arch. They are our architectural firm. I will begin with an overview and talk a little bit about it, and then Melissa Rankowitz from CS Arch. She was one of the people from CS Arch that has been with us for many, many years. She's also accompanied by Stuffle, who again has been part of many of our projects. They have a great wealth of knowledge that they're able to offer, and they will be working with me throughout this presentation. At the end, we will accept questions, comments from the public, both in person and online. I would ask people who are joining us online to please submit comments to boecomments@manans.org. There's also a chat within our live YouTube stream that people can ask questions as well. I will address public questions and comments at the end. I do anticipate that we will answer some of them as we go through the presentation. So, what we're going to do is take a brief look at our last two projects. We had a large project that was started planning in 2016, and then we had a smaller project in 2019. So in 2016, it was ultimately decided that the district needed small group instruction space, and they also needed classroom space. If we were going to renovate some of the classrooms to make small group instruction space, we were going to need to add classrooms as well. In that project, we added 5 middle school classrooms. Part of that project was to really create pods within our building. There was a middle school section, a primary section, an intermediate section. Previously, for example, science was like in the middle of the hallway by second grade classrooms. So we really made an attempt to start to centralize classrooms that all students went to. For example, art. Art was all the way downstairs in the farthest point of the building. We brought that upstairs where a lot of the younger kids access that. So there was quite a lot of reconfiguration and repurposing of spaces. So we added the 5 middle school classrooms, but we repurposed 4 classrooms, and we renovated those classrooms to create small group instruction spaces. Those are spaces for our reading teachers, our math intervention teachers, our English as a new language teacher, our school psychologist, school counselor, people of those natures. They need smaller spaces that are private, and spaces where they can instruct 3 to 5 students or work with 3 to 5 students at a time. We also added breakout spaces for student collaboration. So between some of our classrooms, there's these probably 8 foot by 8 foot class spaces where students can come together and work together. A teacher who's in the classroom can pull students to a quiet space and maybe work through a skill with them. We had intended for there to be breakout spaces for the intermediate classrooms and the middle school classrooms, and those being spaces where kids could go work on group projects together, spread out, get some space, do things of that nature. In that project, we're also quite a few building condition survey items. Every 5 years, we do a building condition survey. We look at the upkeep of our building. We look at the nuts and bolts, the bones of our building to see what needs to be updated and what needs improvements. In that project, paving, roofing, and HVAC upgrades had to be taken out. We planned for the project in 2016. The work started right before the pandemic. The pandemic hit. There were supply chain issues. There were increased costs, and there had to be some hard decisions about what couldn't remain within the scope of what the public had approved. And those items had to come out. So that leads us to the 2023 summer project that we just did. As we look at as debt falls off, we can replace that debt. These 3 items were critical. Anybody who had been here 2 years ago knew our parking lots needed to be addressed. Our roof and our HVAC systems, we were spending quite a bit of money repairing them. You know, we'd get a good rain, and we would have Greenwood Industries here to repair roofing issues. Our guys would come in the morning and we'd get a phone call that room, 162 had no heat and it was 55 degrees in there. We had to make emergency calls for repair to those HVAC systems. So when the opportunity arose, to have those items fixed and addressed without impacting the tax base, the board made the move to make those upgrades, and that's really what 2023 was about. 2023 was taking care of those critical items that we could not take care of in the first project. So it was a smaller project, which now brings us to now. And part of the reason why our 2016 project, Melissa, was about $10 million, right? Somewhere right around $10 million. If you look at what we did in 2023 and now, right, it's about the same cost, but we had to break that up. We could not wait. Like, this work that we're proposing won't begin until 2027. Our roof couldn't wait till 2027. You know, our parking lots couldn't wait that long. So we took advantage of that time in 2023 to make those changes. So some of the things that started to impact the decisions. I, in particular, have elementary enrollment up here because the way middle school is designed, our teachers teach 6 periods a day, which automatically accounts for 2 6th grade sections, 2 7th grade sections, and 2 8th grade sections. It's just the way departmentalization works in middle school. Mr. Herman's here with us tonight. He only teaches science. He can teach 2 6th grade, 2 7th grade, and 2 8th grade sciences, right? So we look at those kinds of things. We can accommodate 2 sections at the middle school at any point in time. Sometimes we have 5 sections, and middle school teachers do different things, provide extra help. But so middle school, like, we can have 50 kids at every grade level, and we would be okay. We wouldn't be talking about additional space necessarily needed. Elementary is where fluctuations really affect us. So an elementary teacher is with his or her students all day long. So if I have 24 students in 4th grade, I can have 1 teacher. 24 students in 4th grade is a very reasonable number. You know, I will say many of our neighbors, their 4th grade classes range anywhere from 26 to 29, right? So in the 20s, we're fine in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I would say in K2, we prefer to have smaller class sizes. But once we hit 30, if we go from 24 to 30 kids in a section, we split the class. We do. And I have to say, with confidence, I can't imagine sharing with next year's 4th grade class that there were going to be 32 kids in their classes. I promise I would probably have those 32 families probably have 26 small ones, right? Like 32 is not what's educationally best for students. So when we look at our enrollment in 2017, and these are all taken from what we call Beds Day in October. It's when the day we have to report all of our enrollment to the state education department. And I use the same time every single year, so it remained consistent. In 2017, in our elementary grades, we had 2 classes. Our 2nd grade only had 20 students in it, and our 4th grade only had 25. Those were single sections. So we had 10 elementary teachers in 2017. In 2019, we saw an increase. 2 years later, kindergarten was over 40, 1st grade was over 40, 2nd grade was at 30, 3rd grade was over 30, 4th grade was at 26. That was a single section. And then 5th grade was at 38. So we went from 10 teachers in 2017 to 11. And then this past year in 2024, this year right now that we're in, and this started last year, but I'm just going to go jump to now. We are now at 2 sections at every grade level. Now we evaluate that every year, but here we are with 12 sections. And I would say, I would be hard pressed to start kindergarten with 28 kids in a single classroom. And that reason is very evident because we're at 33 today. So we made the decision way back when. We looked at our numbers in kindergarten, we did 2 sections. It's under 30, I wouldn't even say those 28 kindergartners. That's a lot. But you know, we still wound up at 33, and we know that that happens. We see enrollment changes. And sometimes our families, kindergarten sneaks up on them. You know, they're like, oh, like, you know, we have some low enrollments, things of that nature, but we're currently at 33. I will note that 4th grade is at 28. That could be a single section. We did start the year with 30 though. Keep in mind, this is October information. We had 2 students over the course of September move out of state. That were their military families that relocated. So we were up to 12 sections. I say that because our overall enrollment hasn't necessarily jumped quite a bit. I will say in 2017, it was at 283. In 2019, it was at 319, and today it's at 310. We do have pre-K here. We do have some students with special needs here. So maybe overall enrollment hasn't seen a sharp increase, but that doesn't drive our elementary decisions. This data right here is what drives our elementary section decisions. So when we talk about increases in enrollment, I look at sections, not necessarily total numbers. And I'll say right now, we're doing the same thing with the administrative team and our teachers. We're looking at, do we have kids moving next year? What are our numbers right now? Who's coming, who's going, and things of those nature. We have students in transitional housing. We're looking at those numbers. Who has moved into permanent housing and will move on to a new school district? Who is still in transitional housing and likely will be with us next year? So we look at these numbers really closely, and I'm telling you, a swing of 5 kids in one direction really is a significant swing here. The next piece that we took a look at when thinking about this project was special education enrollment. So, like so many of our school districts near us, we are seeing increases in students who have exceptional needs. We just are. Our neighbors in North Colony are seeing it. Our neighbors in South Colony are seeing it. Our neighbors in Waterville, Cohoes, Green Island. There isn't a district right now that isn't looking at their special education needs and the exceptional needs that are coming into our schools. So I go back again, I'm going to use the same years that I used previously. In 2017, OOD means out of district placement. Those are students that we pay tuition to send to another school. ID indicates in district students, students that we educate here in our district in a self-contained program. So we have students who need a classroom that has upwards between 8 and 12 students in the class. It has special education teachers in it. It has aides in it. There's a lot of related service programs, OT, PT. Those types of needs are addressed within that environment. So in 2017, we opened our first self-contained program. We had 5 students in our kindergarten through 2nd grade classroom who came in district and were in a self-contained program here in our school. We didn't have one previously because we only had 2 or 3 kids at each grade band, and you can see that. And 3 through 5, we had, I say I was the chair at the time, we had 1 student in an out-of-district placement. In 6 through 8, I had 3 students in out-of-district placements. It doesn't make sense. You can't have a class of 1. You can't have a class of 3. But when we start looking at 5, we have a responsibility to bring students and educate them in a least restrictive environment. We are their least restrictive environment. Even if they're in self-contained, being in their home district with their neighborhood kids that they play with, we have a responsibility to have them here. And in 2017, we took that first step and brought students back to district out of preschool. And we opened with 5 students. In 2019, we still had 5 students, right? And I'm saying they're 3-year bands, right? They came in as kindergartners, first, 2nd grade, they're still in that same classroom. We stayed at 5. I share that with you because they're not going, like the students aren't leaving us. We see fluctuations in a lot of places. Our numbers were pretty steady. They stayed. They were here with us. So we started having conversations like, what do we do? So over the next couple of years, we said, all right, we have to look at the 3 through 5 program. We have to look at a middle school program. We have to start planning for those things. And we started that conversation in 2023 because we knew these students were going to need a different classroom. We also have the ability, while we don't pay for students who are in preschool, we do host their meetings and we do hold their meetings. So if you're a preschooler with exceptional needs, you register here. The testing comes through here. We help these families get placements. They work through our district even though they're not here. So we always have a really good idea how many 3- and 4-year-olds we have coming into district, and we can plan for that. And that's how I wind up with the projection that I'll get to in just a moment. So this school year, in our program, we have 6 students who are being educated here that are Menands student residents. We have 5 students in 3 through 5 who are being educated here that are Menands school district residents. And then in 6 through 8, we still only have 3 students. It's not good for kids, first of all, to pull them from their placements that they have been at for years, right? And then the secondary piece is a class of 3 is not where we want to be with kids. So with that being said, I would then move, and I would also point out, we do have 3 kids out of district. I would say in-district program is not the be-all, end-all. We love to have our kids here, we do. We want them here. I will say they add a dynamic and a dimension to our school that we would miss. We would notice immediately if they were not here. They bring some of the biggest smiles to our faces. What I will say is that we still have students that we can't meet their needs here. Their needs are so exceptional that they need private placements. They need to be in placements that have highly specialized staff that work with them. That is where Mrs. Frank spent the beginning of her career, was at one of those settings. And she works hard with us to determine and really push limits of what can we do here, and making a decision to go to a district placement is a big deal. It's a really big deal. But in some circumstances, we have to. We sometimes have students who have significant behaviors that we can't manage in a school district. We have students in deaf and hard of hearing programs, right? They need to be part of their deaf community. So we do wind up having some students who remain out of district. So when we look ahead to 2026, 2 years from now, we will have 6 kids who will be entering our kindergarten program, at K2 program. We'll have 6 kids that will move up to 3-5, and we will have 5 kids who will now qualify for our middle school programming. So we ultimately made the decision. We knew this year we had to have a 3-5 program, right? We knew it. We know in 2 years we have to have 3 classrooms. So we made the decision to open up 3 classrooms. We're going to need them. Let's do it and get really strong service providers in. Let's get teams that start to work together and build teams that are exceptional, which is exactly what we have been doing. Now, you add 2 classrooms, that comes at a cost. I would say over the time, and we'll get more into this in our budget presentation, we added 2 teachers, 5 aides, an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, and a physical therapist. We added 8 staff members, and our increase last year was still 0.24%. And that is because we made the decision to tuition out our open seats through the collaborative. So we partner with Waterville Elite and Green Island, and we accept students from them on a tuitioned basis. And those tuitions, we charge them cost. Okay, we're not, we had made an agreement, because I have to tell you, if we have students who need behavior classrooms or significant cognitive disabilities, we have the ability to send our students there instead of putting them on tutoring. But we had made an agreement as a group, we would charge the cost of educating the child. We were not here to make money off of programs. And what it wound up doing here is allowing us to open programs, add this staff, and not pass the cost along to taxpayers. And I share that because, we added 8 staff members, benefits and salary. And we are able to offset a lot of that through the tuitioning. We need the classrooms anyway. So we took those empty seats and we tuitioned them out. I would also say we were conservative last year. We counted on having maybe an empty seat in each classroom. We haven't had an empty seat all year. We have kids coming here from Scotia. We have a student coming here from Troy. These programs are in high demand. Our students get our priority seats first, right? Manan students were accounted for first, and we said these are our opening seats, and this is how we can offset costs. But we need 3 classrooms. There's no question about it. So in the meantime, that's how we're helping and working to offset some of these costs. So when our needs shift, we have to adapt our approach. It's just that simple in education. We share with our teachers what we're doing today. We will likely not be doing in 10 years, right? Education and kids and families are changing. When I first got here in 2020, pre-K funding became available. Pre-K is something our village wanted for years. We opened a pre-K. We had funding available from the state. We needed additional classroom space. We had an increase in special education needs. We made the decision to open 2. We know we had 1. We know we're going to need 3, so we opened 2 classrooms. That meant we had to add staff for IEP services. I add that because our OT, PT, and speech, they all need a place to work, right? They all need an office space. They need a small group instruction space. We've seen increases in needs post-COVID-19. Students learning at home, we knew that wasn't best. Kids came back with reading deficits. My first year here with everybody back in the building, 80% of our kindergartners needed reading service. I will say this year, our first graders, I think we're down to like 5%. We had to increase services. Again, those providers need places to work. Now, we had ESSER and ARC funds, right? So again, we didn't have to pass along that cost to taxpayers. And I will tell you, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. You saw an increase in foundation aid. We were the lowest funded districts for foundation aid. They made us whole. In doing that, we were able to keep that staff and offset the cost of foundation aid. And then we have seen elementary enrollment increases. We went from 10 in 2017 to currently 12 sections today. I'm gonna tell you, we might have 11 sections next year. We might have 12 sections, right? We will have the number of sections that our students require. 12 has been our reality, and we have to work from our current reality. So we added all these staff, right? We added classrooms, and this is what has happened. I would invite any community member to come in and take a tour of our building. We don't have an ounce of unused space. All of our collaboration spaces are hosting now resource rooms, our motor room, and special education classrooms. Like the collaboration now happens in the classroom. Our teachers do great. It's working out, but these spaces that we had added, we're not using them as we had intended to. Our community room, no longer a community room. That's where all of our support services sit. Our counselor, social worker, and school psych have an office area, and then out front, they have a meeting space for families. They do counseling out there. Essentially, if you come to our school during a school day, you can't come in through district office anymore. There's kids in that area. We've shut that door down and we've repurposed that space. Our innovation lab is a first grade classroom. Innovation lab now happens in here in the library space. I will tell you, Mrs. Gibson has been a wonderful sport, you know, and so has our maintenance crew. They created tombstones for a fifth grade project. They spent a lot of time getting the black paint out of the carpet, right? But we're making do. We're doing what we need to do. Our Spanish classroom is now in with tech, health, and careers. We have 4 classes plus study halls, all operating out of one classroom. That classroom isn't open a single period a day because the Spanish classroom, which we offer Spanish, you know, across grade levels, is now part of it. It's primarily a Spanish room with some tech projects in the back, some health posters on the wall, an extra desk, and then Mrs. Vandenberg sneaks in and does careers in there every once in a while. So our Spanish classroom is now a 5th grade classroom. I would also say, you know, like our resource officer, our community officer is a great sport. He is in, I would call it, a closet of a room right around the corner. Obviously, he spends very little time in there. He's out and about, but you know, we have used every square inch of space that we have available to us. So with that being said, we're going to move into our presentation with CS Arch. Because this really is the background. We're going to talk a little bit about our building condition survey because we did a lot of work. We did painting, we did roofing, and we did some HVAC. It's like your home. There's always more, right? You prioritize and you chip away a little bit at a time. So I'm going to have Melissa step in with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we're proposing. You kind of know more about the why, how we got here, and what we're proposing to our community.
So a few things we're going to go through. We're going to supplement what Ms. Canavo has been sharing with the planning process. We're going to share a lot about the proposed improvements that are included in this referendum. We'll talk a bit about the project financing so you can understand the tax impact of that work. And then lastly, we'll share the project schedule so you can understand the successful goal when we start to see the fruits of this labor. So the planning process, as Ms. Canavo was mentioning here, really there's 2 parts or 2 components to any project. A portion of that is our building condition survey. That is something that State Education Department requires every school district to hire a design professional to complete every 5 years. Our firm comes in, we evaluate everything in your building, interior, exterior envelope, and your site. So we are looking at doors, windows, floors, ceilings, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, your roof, your parking lots. All of the infrastructure items of your buildings are evaluated and documented in that building condition survey. From that, we develop a list of recommended scope items that the district consider in their future capital projects. So that is the first component of the considerations for this project. The second component, as Ms. Canavo has been sharing, are the space programmatic needs. That is not what the survey, but that is understood based on what are the programs you're currently offering, where are the space deficiencies in those areas, or what programs are you trying to support in the future and you do not have the space to do so. I want to supplement what you were sharing just a little while ago about room sizes and classroom sizes. I didn't want to interrupt you at the time, but one other thing to consider when you're talking about, can we fit 24 students in a classroom? Can we fit 30 students in a classroom? Please remember, classrooms today do not look like classrooms of the past. We are not putting students in tight rows of desks, everyone facing forward, with a teacher that only stands at the front of the room from the chalkboard. These are dynamic spaces, hands-on collaborative learning. We need to move around the space. We're working in groups, we're collaborating. Students are teaching other students, teachers and staff are working around that room. Once you put 30 students and 30 desks in a room, you really can't do those activities, and your learning suffers as a result of that. So I just wanted to share that as well. So a little bit about the planning process. We did have regular facilities committee meetings that were focused on talking about this proposed capital project. We reviewed all the results of that building condition survey so that everyone understood what were the infrastructure needs that came out of that, as well as the programmatic needs. We had a lot of meetings with the district administration and different stakeholders to understand what are the program needs throughout this building so that we can work to address those. Through that committee, we also discussed all of those and started to prioritize the scope. Obviously, there are a lot of things on that list for consideration, and it is more than the district can undertake in one capital project. So we have to work to help them prioritize that and understand what are the greatest needs to address now and which things should be considered in perhaps a future capital project. We're also balancing those needs with the financial impact. So what is the tax impact? What retiring debt do you have? How much debt can you take on to align with that, either tax neutral, or how much additional scope can we take on for a small tax increase? So balancing the needs with what we think is a comfortable financial level to ask the taxpayers to take on at this time. And the final results of that, we're making a recommendation, that committee made a recommendation to the Board of Education for their consideration, which again, they adopted recently and is now put forth to the voters for your referendum. So we'll take a look at the proposed improvements that are now included in this capital project. We have 4 categories. We're divided into health and safety items, academic and program items, infrastructure, and site work. Under that health and safety category, we really don't have many items. Your district is actually really good about safety here. The last capital project, that 2016 capital project, addressed a lot of safety concerns that were present at the time. We created secure vestibules, transaction windows, made a lot of improvements towards safety. The building condition survey just identified a few additional measures that needed replacement. So we're looking at some replacement of some exit signs that are in need of replacement, and then additional emergency lighting at the exterior of the building and gymnasium and corridor areas. Under the academic and program areas, we have 2 large portions of this building. We're proposing a building addition for 3 classrooms and support spaces. As Ms. Canavo mentioned, we'll take a closer look at that, as well as renovating the locker rooms for OT-PT and gym bathrooms. Currently, your OT-PT services are provided in one of those spaces that was intended to be an extended learning area, what was intended to be one of those collaborative spaces. It's now having to be used for OT-PT because we're short on space. So we're looking to recapture that and then renovating the locker rooms that are really not utilized for that space. So we'll take a closer look at that as well. So here's an overall plan of your building. Your entrance for the district office is right here. Your school entrance at the cafeteria area is over here, just to orient you. So this is the front of the building. This is the back of the building, the lower parking lot. Off of the intermediate wing is where we're proposing this building addition. This will be 3 classrooms and a few smaller additional support spaces. So we can start to return some of those spaces that were created in that last capital project to their intended purpose and support some of the classroom services that you're looking for right now. In the green there, you can see located the existing locker room area, which again, we would be removing walls, reconfiguring this area to provide space for the OT-PT program. There are also some bathrooms in that locker room area that we will reconfigure so that you maintain bathrooms in that area. They just need to be reconfigured and made accessible from the gym. And this is just a more three-dimensional view of where that addition would go off of the back of that intermediate wing. We do have the ability, because of the slope of your site out here, we have the ability to have a portion of that be 2 stories and allow some storage for buildings and grounds materials as well. So we don't have to have portable container units out here for that storage. We're just making use of this slope that we have here. Moving on to the infrastructure items. Under the general building category, we have replacement of original wood windows. There are portions of the center portion of your building here that still have the original wood windows. That was another item that was considered in the last capital project, and we were not able to undertake that at that time, so we're looking to include that in this project. We also have some interior and exterior doors, which are starting to be in poor condition, and we want to make sure that those are provided safe and secure for students and staff, so we're looking to replace those. We have a few areas of vinyl tile flooring that remain that were not addressed in that last capital project. Those are largely in the lower level corridor area in the nurse and kitchen. The wood flooring at the stage is in need of replacement. You'll see a photo of that in a little while. We do have a few additional areas of ceilings that were not replaced in that last project that are in poor condition, that are in need of replacement. And then there's student bathrooms, the multi-stall student bathrooms that are across from the cafeteria are in poor condition, dated, in need of replacement and renovation, as well as the single-use bathroom up here outside the library. Including in this infrastructure are mechanical, electrical, and plumbing items. So under mechanical, we're looking to replace the boilers and pumps with some high-efficiency boiler systems. That again, most of these items here are things that were addressed and evaluated during that building condition survey process and are recommended to the district to be replaced at this time. There are additionally some unit ventilators. Those are the heating units that are often low in front of the windows in classrooms. That recent project that wrapped up last year replaced quite a few of those, but there are still a handful that remain that are pretty dated at this point, so they're in need of replacement. When we do those replacements, we're also including air conditioning in those spaces. And then lastly, adding air conditioning at the middle school classrooms that were provided in that last project. Unfortunately, at that time, air conditioning was not as sensitive an issue as it is now. We're looking to meet mandates and make sure that we're providing air conditioning in all classrooms. So we have an additional air conditioning component that would be added to those mechanical systems. Under plumbing, there's some water heaters and storage tank that need replacement, and then some domestic and sanitary piping replacements that are recommended. And under electrical, we have some existing exterior building and parking lot lightings that either need to be replaced or in some locations supplemented to provide additional. And just a few example photos of some of these. You can see some of the original wood windows in the center there. The condition of the wood floor on the stage is clearly in need of replacement and refinishing. And then that original dated bathroom outside of the. And lastly, our last item falls under the site work category, and that is to provide fencing around the playground here so that students are contained for safety and security. I'll talk a little bit about project financing. Everyone's always curious, what is this project going to cost us? This is estimated for $6,725,000. What does that mean for tax impact? We're looking at a median home value of $250,000 for that assessed property value as a median. The estimated yearly tax increase for seniors with STAR exemption is $16. For all property owners with that STAR exemption is $21, and for property owners without the STAR exemption, we're at $20.
I would add those were yearly, not monthly.
And lastly, our project schedule. Everyone's always curious on when we see work. Unfortunately, from the moment that we vote, sometimes people are looking for shovels and it's not that quick. So we'll take a look at the project schedule. So with the referendum vote that is successful on May 20th, if we are successful, we immediately move into our design phase. That's broken up into a few different portions. So we have milestone dates to meet, but that will take us from June of this year through February of next year. Then those drawings that we are preparing do need to be submitted to the State Education Department. They are your permitting agency and actually will grant your building permit. That process takes a while for them to review and provide that approval. We're estimating that if we submit at the end of February, they would be looking at that March through September to provide their approval. We would be then looking to put those drawings on the street for public bid and award those contracts in the fall of 2026 and get people geared up so that your construction could begin in January of 27 and would run through December of 2028. And that is it. Just reminding everyone to please come out and vote on Tuesday, May 20th, noon to 8 p.m. here in this building.
So at this point in time, we would like to take comments and questions from the public. I'm going to start with our folks that are here with us, and then that'll give our folks at home some time to submit questions, and then we'll go through those as well. So I would ask, when you make a question or comment, can you just please identify yourself and your address? We do take minutes on these, and then we'll be happy to answer your questions.
BOE comments at manans.org.
Yep, BOE comments at manans.org for those of us at home, or you can make a comment right in the live stream comment box on YouTube.
So, first of all, my name is Charles Answer, and I live at 26 Brookside. And I want to commend both of you. I understand how big of a project, getting the project going.
Thank you.
Could you go back 2 slides? Let me back up here a minute. Or another one, back up. There we go. So, I think that this is the most important part of the project. The first one to get well down a little bit. I'm the firmest believer that time is of the essence. You have a rare responsibility to educate my children once. Okay? They don't get a second first grade, they don't get a second kindergarten. So this focus of being concerned about my children is imperative. Thank you. Now, I'm looking at this and the mayor's here, $250,000. I might question that. Ron can speak better to that, but am I to understand that $6 million a year, on average, median home, all that stuff, is going to cost $2 a month?
That is correct.
Additional, above and beyond what your taxes are right now, yes.
I don't think we're spending enough money. I mean, that's for real. Is that $6 million capped? Is that something that you're trying to stay under because of a state cap in some other category?
Can you explain the dual vote that we're required?
Yep. So
Sure.
this,
And schools are done differently than other municipalities. We have to go to the public and get this amount approved and passed in the first round. And then we have to do it again when it comes time to bond. So the amount that the board discussed and public session had information about was to keep the debt that's coming off in 2.5 years at pretty much neutral. So there's no huge spike or dip in the tax coming on and off, right? We're very conscious about that in the public. But we have to have it approved twice.
So when you remain neutral, and I
Correct.
respect that, and Charles is a number guy, and I respect that. When you remain neutral, that's perfect. Thank you for doing that, right? And it's a difficult challenge to remain neutral when you have to continually pay for quality educators, right? So again, that's a tremendous lift that you guys are accomplishing to remain as neutral as possible. So, but this expenditure here, you're getting 3,500 square feet of space and it's costing $6 million. What God knows whether the tariff is going to affect all that. And you're talking about buying boilers that may or may not be imported. So there's a real sensitivity to that kind of stuff. But you're doing a very Herculean task here for this amount of money. Very conservative. I think you're being very, very conservative. And my caution is you get a bite at the apple. Have you looked at this and said, this is big of a bite that we need, or could it be bigger? Because I'm paying $2 a month. I understand I understand the pressure that you guys are under, but I want to commend you for this. You have to be not paying attention to understand that the early childhood educational needs in our country are skyrocketing. So again, thank you for taking that into consideration. as our children are matriculating through here, we want them to go to their next stage into ninth grade, somewhere else, at a higher than competitive quality of education, right? They're gonna go to a new environment, new learning, but they need to have had that underpinning that you give them, right? That you guys give them. Will this help us stay or exceed the competitiveness that you guys have to get into ninth grade?
So I think I can speak to a couple of things. So the first thing that I will say when I go to how we landed at this current number. So, when our group came together, it's all the things, right? So if we went for all the things, it was like about $18 million. If we looked at additional gym space, because I will say our gym is booked from start to finish. And a big piece of that, quite honestly, and I'm proud of, we meet the requirements of the PE regulations. One of the very few districts in the area. Our kids in K through 3 or K through 2 get PE every single day for 30 minutes. I will tell you, in my home district, they get it twice a week for 30 minutes. And that's pretty typical. So our gym space is like booked from beginning to end of day. So that would have been great. We were looking at about $18 million. We were looking at adding classrooms over here by the playground, relocating the playground. Like we had big dreams, right? And then the committee comes together and we talk about let's talk about what's realistic. And we have our financial advisors come in and talk to us about, okay, if you want to do an $18 million project, this is what it's going to mean for your voters. And they give us some breakdowns and we start to look at that. Historically, our school district has gone out with tax neutral projects. And I will say in the committee and on the board level, when we were having discussions, we knew to accomplish what we felt like was going to be really important programmatically and from a maintenance perspective. This is where we had to at least begin. And I will say there was some testing and some conversation around, would our community for the first time tolerate a project proposal that wasn't completely tax neutral? And I don't, when we say it's $2 a month, right? Like that seems incredibly reasonable for what we're trying to do. The other piece that I would add is when you're looking, a lot of what we're doing is going to be aidable under New York State, right? Like New York State just won't let us build and build and build and build. We have to prove that we need the space. So when we're talking about adding those other places, they would have been solely at the cost of the district taxpayers. So for instance, on this project, a good portion of this project is state aidable, meaning that we will get reimbursement. We don't have to bond this entire project. When we started looking at those additional spaces, the numbers started to go up really quickly because they were going to be non-aidable spaces. Would you add anything to that, Melissa? Because you've been a part of this for a day.
Yeah, that's the thing to understand is any of those other building additions, whether it's additional classrooms here or additional gym space, would be 100% tax burdened on your taxpayers, whereas the proposed addition through our evaluations will be largely eligible for New York State building.
So,
There's a threshold there, but looking at the building enrollment, the space you do have, and what space they feel you need to provide instruction for those.
so speaking Bill's question, Bill, so you go out to the voters and you say it's 6-7, and we all say, go for it. Then you go out to the bond market and try to sell a bond, and but now what you're saying is that bond sale could be quarterly.
So if we did additional space, that bond
Which is a good thing.
we could be bonding more. So I think in about 2029, we see this project coming onto the tax rolls.
Mhm.
And we're looking at about $2 a month for our homes at 250,000. Let's say it's about $1 million, do some rough math, let's say double, right? But I would say a pretty reasonable rate. It's a 0.7 increase. Now in 2029, when hopefully I'm still here as your superintendent, right? And I come and I do my budget presentations, I'm gonna say this is our tax cap, right? And I gotta add in the 0.7. And that goes in front of the voters again. So let's say, and I'm
In 2029.
in 2029. So I look at a year like this year, right? Our tax cap that we're gonna be going out is a little over 4%. If this was a year that I was bringing on this project, I would be going out to the voters and asking for almost a 5% tax increase. And that to us becomes a little bit like, ooh, couple the increase with whatever our tax cap is, that goes to the voters in 2029. Now, let's say our voters are like, 5%, no way, right? We have to include that 0.7% no matter what. That building is bought and paid for. So when I have to look at reductions, the programmatic, they start to become programmatic reductions, people reductions. So what we're doing is we're trying to look ahead. We're trying to make sure, and we can't exactly predict what the tax cap will be. Last year it was 0.24. This year we're looking at a little over 4%. And I'll talk a little bit about how that ebbs and flows. And, quite frankly, how our district has been supportive, our residents, of that ebbing and flowing, knowing that when it's 0.24, we stick to that. When it's a little bit more, that makes up for it. But our thinking is in 2029, we don't want to be faced with a 4%, let's say a 4% increase on the project, plus a 3% tax cap. Now I'm going out to the voters asking for 7%. Like that to the committee and to the board gave us some hesitation. And that's ultimately why I don't think that these calculations here give us a lot of, looking at this in isolation, this feels good, right? Like for what we're trying to accomplish, we're also trying to be forward thinking. And when we get to 2029, what does that look like on a ballot for our voters? And we don't want to box, we don't want to, we don't.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you for having the skill set to listen to your staff and talk about the educational requirements of every child in the program. And then also commend you on your ability to financially look ahead and say, this has a ripple effect as we go forward. And you've taken the future into consideration with the current educational requirements. You guys are doing a fabulous job.
I would add to, today, the here and now, because, when you listen to this, one of the things that I think families would automatically think, and I would if my kids went here, is okay, Jen, you have just shared all these constraints. What's happening to my kid here and now, right? And I will tell you with 100% confidence, our staff, I've asked them to do some hard things. Our middle school resource room teacher is currently working out of our old facility director's office. Her office is probably about the size of this carpet. And she, and you know what? And she reduced her stuff. She has her table. We look at her group sizes. We have teachers who open up their classrooms to provide teaching accommodations and things of that nature. I look at some of our special education staff. We have a special education teacher who's currently working between two second grades. Now she services second grade. So in some ways it's really convenient. But again, she went from having her own private space to now she has 3 doors into her little space. She's got a classroom door and she's got 2 doors that go out into classrooms. And I will tell you, they are doing all the things. We haven't skipped a beat in innovation lab, right? Okay, we spent a little more time cleaning carpets and things of that nature, but we re-outfitted the library last year to give all of the storage that our library media specialists could possibly need. So she can still function as a library, but each one of these containers all contain STEM materials. So she can have all her materials here and she can still have a library. I'm incredibly proud of some of the middle school work that we've done. We have open enrollment for accelerated classes in grades 7 and 8. Your kid wants to take accelerated classes. There's no more exclusionary criteria. Your kid can be in, our teachers will work with you, we'll provide them extra support. And we've started acceleration in 7th grade to ensure that students are successful. We now accelerate in 7th and 8th grade. For the first year, we have a Spanish 2 class here. Our kids can leave with 2 high school credits in with Spanish. And I will say the enrollment in our Spanish 2 class this year is about 70% of the class. There's more kids in Spanish 2 in 8th grade than there is in Spanish 1. Our teachers are doing it. And they're doing it under sometimes hard conditions, but they're working together, they're doing it, they're making it happen. And you know what? We're a school, we have our strategic plan, we have places that we need to continue to grow. But I will tell you, I am humbled by the work that gets done within this building. And I know that our teachers keep pushing forward to do better, be better, because they know that we have a community that will support what they need. We can't do it right now. I can't make more space show up, but they know that we're thinking about it and they know that we're going to get there. And I think that helps kind of keep pushing the needle while we wait for 2027. All right, I'll get off that. Other questions? Do you have other questions, Mr. Answer, or other people, or comments? And then I'm going to move to online questions and comments as well.
What about when I want to go when it snows out?
We did talk about the sledding hill. We're all a little sad.
So here's the thing, I didn't know
Like,
this.
what's up with that?
Let me come back to in all seriousness, so I did say, I was like, so Dr. Long took the water slide. And I have now taken the hill.
Yeah, you guys are up the worst.
So we were here and we were looking at old pictures. So this area over here, and along the entire soccer field, never used to be overgrown. It used to be a clear, beautiful sledding hill. And we are working to get back there. So the last couple of years, we have made significant gains in our building and grounds, particularly our grounds outside. Because let's be honest, when times are tough, and times were tough in COVID-19, right? Like we prioritized our dollars and cents here. So we had been chipping away a little at a time on outside. So for instance, the soccer field at one point in time, we lost about 6 feet of the soccer field all the way around with overgrowth. We took care of that last year. That hill, or the year before, last year out by the tennis courts, there were fallen trees and overgrown, and like the one winter really the ice storm did a number on us. We cleaned that up. We did a walk of the grounds about 2 weeks ago. We're looking at this section here. And the first thing I thought was like, it's just been overgrown for so long, right? I was like, all right, it's just kind of the way it is. And I was like, wait, no, it wasn't. Like we have potential there. So hopefully we won't.
Get our new sledding hill.
We'll have a good sledding.
And it won't end in the parking lot, which will be even better.
Into a plow.
Yeah, right, with no plow.
Yeah, there was, you go up and over.
Yeah, but last year they were hitting the snow plow because the snow plow was parked at the bottom of the hill.
Move that note to self. Not a great thing down there. But other questions, or I'll move to some of mine, and I'll come back to those just in front of us as well. It's not a one-time deal. So, Ms. O'Connell, can you please share, can you read some of the questions? And
Yeah.
some of them may have been addressed, and I'll go back and talk to them, but then we'll go from there.
This one is, I think, mainly a comment from Jessica Tomei, who has 2 students here. As a parent with 2 children in the school and an active member of the PTA, I've seen just how much of a difference these kind of upgrades can make. This new middle school is beautiful, and this new project continues that progress, providing safe and functional spaces where our kids can thrive. Updating outdated classrooms, fixing outworn infrastructure, and making the building more energy efficient are common sense improvements. These kinds of investments pay off. Strong, well-maintained schools help increase property values, draw new families to our area, and build pride in our community. When we invest in our children and their learning environment, we invest in the future strength and stability of Manans. This includes investing in programs like the Riverside Collaborative, which allows Manan students to receive the services they need close to home in supportive educational environments, and the pre-K program, which provides Manan's youngest students with early math, literacy, and social skills that lay the foundation for future academic success. I fully support this important project and thank the school and the board for all its hard work. These are from Johanna Clark, who also lives in the village. She's got a couple, so I'll go one at a time. Prior to the last large capital project, a population study was done that supported the addition of several classrooms and space to the building. What was the time horizon of that study? Was a population study done prior to the new proposal? Was the formal population study accurate in its predictions? And does the school anticipate further organic growth in the district? That's question number 1.
All right, so let me start with that one. So enrollment studies. So whenever you want to add square footage to your building, you have to do an enrollment study. And that's really where SED, State Education Department, makes some of their decisions about what they're going to need, what becomes building able. So in 2016, for that project, we did a building study. In that building study, went through the whole process. The committee had some significant concerns about that enrollment study because it only looked at live births in the village. So that enrollment study had our population going from like 260-ish, 259-ish, down to about 220. And the committee said, hold on a minute. Like, let's look at some trends here. We had our apartment buildings. We were starting to see students at Schuyler Inn start to attend here. So that committee really started, they took that enrollment study as one piece of data because there was significant concerns like, okay, maybe live births are projected to go down, but we were seeing our immigrant skyrocket. We were seeing newer families enroll in the district. Like we knew we had some kindergarten and first graders here who had little people at home. So there was some significant concerns around that initial study. So they did some, you submit the study, but then you can also provide some other documentation. And that's really what we did. So that study, quite honestly, was not, I would say, very predictive or reliable. So knowing that, when we did our enrollment study this year, we went through a BOCES service. And the reason we selected that BOCES service is because it was much more comprehensive. Yes, it looks at live births, but I reached out to the mayor and I asked for growth in the village. They looked at 10 years of enrollment data. They looked at 10 years of population data within the village. They looked at more data points. And what I will say is that we're not looking at significant increases in our enrollment. We're not. But we really do believe that where we are is where we are going to be. It does not predict reductions in what we're seeing. May we see increased enrollment? We may. We don't know who's going to move into the district, right? We don't know, I don't know, maybe right now we have half of our apartments filled with single families, right? Families could move in. I mean, single individuals with no children. That can change. There's a lot of flexibility here, but our current enrollment study that we did that looked, I would say, more deeply and at a lot more data points supports that our population is going to stay pretty steady. Did I answer all the pieces of that question, Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Okay.
The next question Mrs. Clark had was, based on current enrollment, the school population is about 50 students more than was prior to the last capital project. How many of the students can be contributed to the added preschool classrooms and the addition of special education out of district?
So we have 18 students who sit in pre-K. So that is the first piece that I would say right off the bat. And then in our current classrooms, we have tuitioned out probably about 15 seats right now. Is that a fair? We have 14 seats tuitioned out right now. So 18 and 14. But what I will share with you is that those 14 seats, we need those classrooms, whether those 14 seats are filled or not. I think that's an important piece. We don't need the classrooms because of the collaborative. We need the classrooms to serve our students. We can offer the open seats to offset some of the cost. The other piece that I would say is I would go back to the elementary slide. We have added 2 elementary sections. It's not because we've seen significant increases. We have probably seen a total of maybe 20 kids in the elementary world. But what I will say is where they land is what drives our decisions. As I will say, in K2, 28 kindergartners we're looking at for next year. I would not make a recommendation that we start with 28 kindergartners. It's under 30. I would not make that recommendation. I would also add that I would not recommend when we have 30 students in a class. I taught a class of 30 fifth graders, not intentionally. I started with 28 and I wound up with 32, right? I've done that personally. It's hard. And when we start looking at the attention that students need to learn, I don't think that that's what's best for our kids. So we haven't seen these large increases, but it matters where.
Does the district plan to add more students from out of district?
Every single seat that we have open right now is full. And what I will say is as we look ahead, we prioritize Manan students, we look at what's open, and those are the seats that we are available for tuitioning. Next year, as we look at students coming in, who's coming in, but there's always that we are never going to be able to service all of our students here. Some students just have such exceptional needs that they need out of district placements. And we're looking at out of district placements next year. But it's really about the kid. If they can be here, we are going to have them here. Do I think that we're gonna have an increase in seats? No, I think it's probably gonna stay about the same because we have some kids who age out, some kids that come in. So we're looking at about a flat, that should stay pretty flat next year. The following year, is when we're gonna start seeing some movements, like our K2 kids are gonna move up to 3-5. Our 3-5 kids are gonna move up to 6-8, and we've already got 6 kids in waiting to come on in and refill that K2 classroom. So it'll shift and adjust a little bit from year to year, but you know, we start to see the movement. Now, I will also add though, right? Like I have 5 students in 3-5 next year. If I have a large group, you know, if I have 4 kids leave, right? We may need to look at having more primary classrooms. Right now, what I can share with you is the best information that I have. I will tell you, our families who are in our programs are some of our happiest families. I don't see people leaving. I don't see, you know, unless they have to, we sometimes have families who have to relocate, right, out of state and things like that. But, you know, our numbers have stayed pretty consistent in those rooms.
And this is our last question, which I think you have answered, but would the school need the space if out-of-district students were placed elsewhere?
So I'm going to speak to this from 2 pieces. And I guess there's really 2 pieces to this puzzle, right? So our students who are being served within our classrooms, you know, I told you we have about 5 or 6 kids at each grade band. When we reach that 5 or 6 kids, we have a responsibility to educate those students in their home district. We just do. When it's 2 and 3, you have to balance like being in your home district, but having like a class of 2 or 3, that's not great. But where we are, I will say from a least restricted environment standpoint alone, we have a responsibility to educate our students here and have them be a part of our school community. Those families deserve a seat in our school. Those students deserve a seat in our school, just like any other student. So at the annual review table, those decisions are made, and then we have a responsibility to look at those decisions and provide the programming. I don't get to go to Mrs. Kozlowski and be like, oh, well, you know, actually, could you maybe consider some out of like, I don't sit at that table. They send me their recommendations, nor should I sit at that table, right? Because I have a fiscal view. Mrs. Frank has the students' needs as her view. You know, it's think of it as like separation of powers, right? So that's the first piece. The second piece that I will say is take that and set it to the side, right? Just set that to the side and let's just talk fiscally for a moment. To educate a student out of our district is an incredibly big decision. One, they're not attending their home district. Students are on the bus anywhere from 30 minutes. This year we had a student on the bus for about 75 minutes because the program that he required was so far away. Okay, and we wanted them closer, but they didn't have a program that met their needs. So that's the first piece. There's the transportation, there's not being in their home district, and then there's the fiscal piece. So an out-of-district placement can run anywhere from $60,000 to $170,000. That's per year to educate a student. So let's just land at $100,000. If I were to say, let's take all of our students this year and put them in out-of-district placements, transportation, tuition, we would be looking at over $1 million in tuitions every single year. When that new group of students age in, we'll be looking at closer to $2 million worth of tuitions every single year that those students are with us until 8th grade. Those are really big, like, financial numbers. So, you know, I say that because out-of-district placements, they're expensive. They are. Like, when a student needs to go to out-of-district, they need highly specialized programs. They need behavior therapists, right? They may need ABA programming. They may need one-to-one programs. Like, the level of need when you get to that is high. So I would just say from a fiscal standpoint alone, we would be making some really tough decisions here if we didn't educate any of our students in-house. You know, we are putting forth about I would say close to a $13 million project. If we send all of our students out, I'd be going to the voters for $15 million, or I would be looking to cut $2 million, right? Like, let's be honest, you know, that's what we would be looking at over the next couple of years. So even fiscally, you know, it truly is, I do believe, what's best. I would also add, we send our students out of district, there's no tuition to collect to offset the cost. The cost is the cost, and we absorb it here at this table. So, you know, there really is, you know, we do have some students out of district, and for a long time, we did send most of our students out of district because we didn't have the numbers to support having the rooms here. Our students are here. and we have to do what's best for them. And it actually works out to be very fiscally responsible here as well. Any other online questions?
Yes.
Okay.
More. Allison Walden commented, she also lives in the village. Her first question is, how many students go out of district in K-5 and 6-8 to accommodate their needs?
Can you?
It's
Yeah, so on one of my initial slides, you don't have to pull it back up, Trish, I'll just pull it up. So this school year, in K2, I don't have any students in out-of-district placements. I have 3 students in 3-5, and I have 3 students in 6-8, so a total of 6 students in out-of-district placements.
Second question from Mrs. Walden is, has a district considered redistricting or reconfiguring grade levels to optimize space for expanding? Has there been discussion to eliminate the middle school if members' average grades are consistently low?
So what I will say, the first piece is that we have, over the last couple of years, truly maximized our space. We are using every inch of this building that we can use at all points in the day. One of the first kind of hurdles that I needed to work through with Melissa was, we came and did a walk, and she, you know, her eye is looking for unused space or space that is not maximized. And you know what we wound up with? We wound up with locker rooms. Like that's the only space in the building that we are currently not maximizing and using throughout the day. When we look at reconfigurations, we did a lot of reconfiguring and moving kids around when we did the initial project, and that was an effort. We have looked at the building, we have there's only, the sections are the sections, the classrooms are the classrooms, and we have people working out of every available space that could use them. That was the first piece. When we talk about middle school, so the first thing that I'll say about middle school is I didn't address middle school enrollment because middle school enrollment isn't driving this conversation, as I shared. We can really have about 50 students at a grade level and to look and see what happens. What I will share with you is this. Our numbers do decrease as we get closer to middle school. And I'll give you an example today. We know we have a family who's relocating. A lot of times we have immigrant families who come and they land here and they live in the apartments. After they establish themselves around 4th and 5th grade, they're in a position to buy a home. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of homes to buy here. There's just not. And I will tell you about 50% of the time, the first question they ask me is, well, can I just still send my kid? I'll drive them. Like they still want their kids here, but that's just not how residency works. So I will say we do lose some families in that respect. I will say also, and I will fully acknowledge that we have had, I will call some bumps in the roads over the years. I will say COVID-19 caused some rifts where I know some families had left. I will say that I know when I first arrived that we had some challenges here that we had to tackle, and that may have resulted in some of our families leaving. We have made a concerted effort to improve and be better. And I will say overall, I think our middle school programming is better than it's ever been. And I say that with confidence. Our middle school scores are on the rise, ELA and math. Our students across the board are showing improvements there. We're offering more courses than we've ever been able to offer. We have more students who are eligible to take accelerated courses and leave our school with high school credit. Our kids can leave with 4 high school credits. Our middle schoolers can leave with earth science, algebra, Spanish 1, and Spanish 2. I will say Spanish 2 used to be really difficult. You used to have to just take Spanish 1 here kind of twice. Because we didn't, and in most schools, that's what Spanish 1 is. Spanish 1 is over 2 years. In any school you go to, you start Spanish in 7th grade and you take it into Spanish 2. But for our kids who start Spanish in elementary school, they were ready for Spanish 2. So you'd go through your elementary Spanish, you would take Spanish 1 as a traditional course over 2 years. And then some kids would go to Shaker and try to test into Spanish 3, right? Some kids were incredibly successful doing that. The problem was that Spanish 2 has very different curriculum. So we looked at each other and said, why don't we just offer Spanish 2? Like, we'll give the Spanish 1 test at the end of 7th grade, because we have kids starting in elementary school, right? The kids that have been with us, let everybody take the test. even the kids who don't pass it, it's not gonna hurt them. They've had some experience taking the test, right? If you don't pass it, you show up in 7th grade, you show up in 6th grade, there's a chance you might not pass that test, right? You haven't had the same exposure as our other kids. So now in 8th grade, we offer Spanish 1 and we offer Spanish 2. So no matter what, you're gonna leave with the Spanish 1 credit. You potentially could leave with the Spanish 1 and the Spanish 2 credit. I share that because we continue to make these kinds of gains. I'm never going to have modified basketball. I'm never gonna have that to offer your kids. I'm never gonna have.
Let me build a second gym. There'll be an enrollment.
So, I will say the piece that's always gonna be hard here are our athletics. I will also say that we do a really nice job with our athletes here. We have a kid over at South Colony who went through our track and field program and just won the national high jump. The Shaker starters that just won the state championship, 4 out of the 5 kids of those starters are Menands kids.
Yep.
Our kids go and do really good things. We have kids that go up and join Shaker football and they wind up on football scholarships at college. I don't have to offer you these modified sports, but what I can promise you is that we are offering our children opportunities and we partner with the village. We make sure that any kid that wants to play baseball, the baseball team reaches out to me, they comp kids who maybe can't afford it, and then the PBA and our teachers make sure that they show up with cleats, baseball gloves, and bats. Our soccer team, they're like out there working. Mr. Herman used to be a 6 through 8 soccer team. Now it's 7th and 8th grade because he has so much student interest. Our track team, we couldn't accept all the kids in 5-8 who wanted to play this year. We didn't have enough spots, but we got them on. We do have flag football. Any kid that want to play sport this spring, play it, right? So, and some of our kids play flag football and they play, and they do track and field. I would add, not for nothing, we're not a modified, but we compete against St. Pius. We're competing against Woodland Hills. We're competing against other schools. They're not just here doing the practices and then like we're good, we had some practices. They go out and compete. Our kids will go to 4 track meets this year. And we've made it. Our kids go to Waterville. They have a beautiful brand new track. We use their track at no cost. And our kids get to host meets over at Waterville High School. We're never going to be Shaker Middle School. And I'll be honest, I don't want to be Shaker Middle School. Shaker Middle School is amazing and they are great and they do wonderful things. And I would say we do too in a different way. So if and when the community has the interest in looking at moving some middle schoolers out, if we get to that point, we'll have that conversation. The board will not shy away from difficult conversations. I don't think we're there. I think we're moving.
You are a fabulous salesperson. I'm thinking about going to school.
So I will
Track is flag football.
So, I will say, I love Menands, and it's just the way it
It's
is.
obvious.
I student taught here in 2000. I was a teacher here. I left for a little while, went to North Colony and got some administrative experience. And then when the second role, I came back and was the principal, and now you're superintendent. We're gonna do everything that we can for kids, and you have 5 board members. When I come and ask them for anything, the question is never if. They're like, okay, how are we gonna do it? And I would say it's the same thing for our teachers and our administrators. It's not always like if we're gonna do things for kids, it's gonna be how. And I hope as families age up to become kindergartners and pre-K, I hope that they come and give us a try. I hope that they see our school as a place where their kids belong and that they don't need to go out to a private school. Sometimes families need to choose private schools for whatever personal reasons, and families have the ability to do so, right? Whether it be religious reasons, opportunities, whatever the case may be. But my hope is over the years that Menands becomes one of their first considerations. And, and I'm just going to say, if your religion is, a core piece of your school experience, I can't provide that here. We're a public school, right? I'm never going to be able to do that. We are never going to be able to do that for families. but there's a lot that we can do, and we'll continue to try to do them. Other questions?
Three more.
Okay, I mean, a lot more concise.
You already answered this one. So
Okay.
how many students are brought into district?
Mhm.
The next one was, how is the Riverside Collaborative still saving taxpayers?
So when I added 9 positions last year, the taxpayers did not absorb that cost. So adding those positions cost about $500,000. We covered that in tuitions. I'm sorry? And it's a whole lot less. So what I will say to you is, those classrooms need to exist. They need to exist, period. That $500,000 cost in order to meet the needs of our kids, needed to come forth. We didn't pass that cost along because we covered that through out of district tuition, or through filling the empty seats with tuitions. I will say, the seats that we are offering are highly coveted. So we opened the collaborative in September. Mrs. Kozlowski was getting phone calls from families like, hey, can we just come? Like, we heard about this collaborative, it was on the news. She was getting phone calls from like families across the Capital District, like, can we come? Like, we live in Rensselaer, like, you got a spot for us? And that's, it's really hard to say to a family, right, who's maybe their child is home on tutoring because they don't have a spot. I know at one time, Wildwood, which is a private school locally, who serves primarily students with autism needs, their waiting list was double digit. I don't even know what it's at now. What? Dozens. I mean, dozens and dozens of kids just on home tutoring waiting. Our spots are just, they're in high demand. So when we have them, we fill them really, really quickly. And we have families who move, right? So we had a Warby family who moved to Albany. Albany was like, no, you have to come to our programs. We have them, but they were desperate to stay. You know what I mean? So the spots are highly coveted. So ultimately, we needed the classrooms. By providing tuition to those students, we've been able to offset the cost. Now, I will tell you, if next year Manan's kids could fill every seat, I won't be collecting tuitions. And that is the truth, but that is not where we are. When we look at projections for next year, we're in a very similar place that we are right now, that the tuitions will help offset the cost to the taxpayers. I would say our taxpayers, you pay for our one self-contained classroom. You do, and you have since 2017. The 2 that we have added, we've been able to offset the cost through tuition.
And I believe you answered this one as well. Are there plans to increase or limit enrollment for our out-of-district students?
So the idea that Mrs. Kozlowski does, she works with our partners. We look at students who are incoming. We determine Manan's kids. Can they be in district or do they have to be out of district? Right? We still have that conversation. We fill our Manan seats, and then what is remaining, we tuition out to other districts. Sounds good. Other questions and pieces? Yes,
Oh, I just have a comment.
absolutely.
So Lorraine has a special need program, and I'm mom, Jennifer Schiffer, and I live at 84 Manan Road. Don't visit us. But he really enjoyed coming here. I mean, the one summer we had to stay, or go to Waterloo, he was like, ugh. But he likes knowing kids in the neighborhood. He doesn't say hi back, I'm sorry. He does not say hi back unless I call him. But he really enjoyed coming to school, riding the bus, being like as much of a regular kid as he can. So the special education program being here is so helpful to our family.
Thank you.
And we love Miss Kay, and he still misses you. All right, that's it.
Other questions or comments from the public? Mrs. Hamid?
So my name is Raja. I live in 303 Broadway. I'm a parent of 3 students from Hedgemans, one of them in the middle school, one in the 2nd grade, one in one of the self-contained classes. And I'm lucky to work as a sub teacher since 2020 in elementary school, and now I'm helping as a class 8. I just want to add something, like having the self-contained classroom is very convenient for my family and for my kids. And the space that we need to, for the OT and BT. It's not just helping the kids in the self-contained classroom, but it's a need for, I think, as I see, for a lot of the kids in the general ed classes as well. And to have this service like stable is helping my kids a lot. Because before, like, it used to be like in different places, different teachers, different plans, and like, and what I see this year is really appreciated.
So prior to the collaborative, our OT and PT needs were through contract services. So we contracted through an agency because when we had one classroom, there wasn't, trying to get a 0.5, a half-time occupational therapist is near impossible. But now that we are at a point where it's full-time, we can have our own people, which really has been, outstanding. And it's provided a lot of stability for our kids. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Yes.
Hi, Jen Forbio. I'm at 43 Amsterdam. I have a first grader and a pre-K student here, and I just want to make a quick comment. I was very nearly a homeschool parent. We did kind of a trial homeschool year with my first grader. We just weren't sure what our schooling situation was going to be like, and that was something that was on our family's mind before we moved to Manans. So we did my son's, what would have been his preschool year, as kind of a homeschool trial year. And towards the end of that school year in the late spring, I think we had come to an event at the school. And we had never been at any events before. I grew up in Margate, so like I knew of Manans, but I had never visited. And it truly changed everything. So my son missed pre-K here. And that does make me sad, but my daughter now is in pre-K here, and her love for the school already, just being able to send her to pre-K here, she's like, I'm a Manans student, I love Manans is everything to me. I think that the pre-K program here is just so important to like really establishing kids coming into kindergarten. They have the routine down, they know the building, and that's so important when they're that little, that comfort coming in. So that's what I say.
That's cool.
Thank you.
Is your daughter one of the ones that runs around?
Yes, yes. Every morning I watch 2 other of her classmates in the mornings because their parents can't stay until drop-off time. So my daughter hangs out with them in the morning, and it's just such a great little community builder, and it's just a really great program.
Any more online?
No, there are no more.
Anything further that we can clarify or answer for the group that are here? Okay. Board members, anything that we can address or any final comments before we close out our forum? Okay.
Thank you.
So we thank you for joining us. We are going to transition to our regular board meeting. Within our regular board meeting is going to be a budget presentation. What I can share with you is 2 things. You are welcome to stay. They are also recorded if you would like to be on your way and look at them later, but we welcome you and invite you to stay if you would like to. If you would like to step out, please do so with no judgment. But thank you for being here tonight. Please share with your neighbors and let them know that the presentation will be available online as well.
Great job. Thanks for the question, guys. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Some college is gonna buy her.
Yeah, well,
Thanks for the
we'll strap her down.
Scott is here today to the presentation of Bostera. Just in case there's any, like questions about how it connects to building, that kind of stuff, just because he has the knowledge for this.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the comment. Thanks for the comment. I'm on the building and see what I said.
I don't know. I don't think very long.
Senior recession, that's
Senior night.
assassin.
Is it with square guns?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Videotape.
Yeah. You can get a, you have like wear goggles, if you have goggles on, you're safe and all that. Yeah, I saw.
But then there was, last night there was 2.5 hours of time, no matter if you had goggles on or not.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's like an Athens. What's it?
Lily and Liam said, we gotta go. And they jumped in their house.
Just left. Can't tell you.
We're going.
That's a terrible idea. How is
Yeah,
this still?
it's very constant. No, it's like a newer thing. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They love it. Kids love it.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's like best friends,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and you don't know who you get. You know who you get, but
Yeah,
you're not
yeah,
telling people.
Right.
No one
Oh,
knows.
it's coming after.
I can-
Yeah, so
can
like
you
you're
get
sitting
me
in a car with like your best friend,
Parked outside my house tonight. When I was waiting for the meeting.
Because they're waiting.
Yeah, they're waiting for them to come home.
like a hit.
They're not allowed to do it in school though, right?
I doubt it.
No school, no sports, and no, nothing at work.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
It's like an app.
Fake.
All right, I have 7:57. We'll call this meeting to order, please. Can I get a motion to enter public session, please?
All right, I'll make a motion to enter public session.
Second,
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
We're in public session. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Nevis,
Here.
Mr. Jeffcoat,
Here.
Mr. Luke.
Here.
Mr. Roman.
Yeah.
And Mr. Smith will be joining us.
Can we rise for the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a reminder for those members in public in attendance, this is one of two opportunities afforded the public to comment on or inquire about agenda items. Members of the public also have an opportunity at the end of this evening's agenda to make comments. It's boecomments@manans.org for those online. We will be having comment session after the budget workshop, which is 3 items away. Does anybody have anything online?
Not really.
Can I get approval of the minutes, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education, the Manans Union Free School District, accept the minutes of the March 24th, 2025 special meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That brings us to communication to the board. My thing here.
So yearbook club.
Yearbook club, thank you.
Thanking, communication to the board from the yearbook club, thanking them for their page in the yearbook. You're welcome.
Did you do that or Patrick do that?
Patrick.
Awesome. We'll thank him when he comes in later. That brings us right to the budget workshop. Ms. Canavo.
So for the budget workshop that we have this evening, there is not a lot of additional and new information. We will go through the presentation because part of tonight's agenda is the board will formally adopt
After we adopt.
our budget. And then that will trigger our
Public
next
hearing,
steps
whatever.
in, communication to the community around what we are proposing. So for tonight, I will talk a little bit about where we've been, where we're going. There is an additional slide that looks at spending over, from 23-24 to 24-25, as requested by the board from the previous meeting. We do still have the percentages, but we're only looking at percentages from last year to this year. But we do have the changes for the board based on where we had spending. And I will say we did that in big categories, but I'll address that when we get to that. So for tonight's meeting,
Sorry, it's not.
it's okay.
Do you mind if I plug it in?
No, please join us. So we have a cooking replacement plan. This is one of the ones that we were set for place for next year. So they get finicky with age. Might not be the right one.
So when I do for company night, we have to do it here. Put it on shelf.
Apologize.
What would like the,
You know.
It always happens. It always happens. It's all good.
Something has to go wrong, to always go wrong. Of course.
Hard copies we could scatter around. We don't.
Hey, aren't you guy or something?
Yeah, but there's so much in it.
Different software.
If you ask the budget rate, there's so much in budget. He wants on six. No, she has to just choose. Right? Yeah,
Sorry.
that's what I said. You have to choose the right input. Right. So she's looking at some other.
Yeah.
But
So-
the other input didn't
Here we
come
go.
out.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna start with our expenditures. Please keep in mind that the expenditures are what we put in front of the public to approve at our vote. So for 25-26, we are looking at a total budget of $12,976,198. That is a $521,553 difference from the year prior, and we will talk a little bit tonight, or a lot tonight, about where those differences come into play. And that difference is about 4.19%. Our proposed budget maintains all of our current programming. It allows us to assume responsibility for our district-operated pre-K. The agency that is operating our pre-K currently has informed us that they are pulling back from operating pre-K. I'm going to be very honest with you, the dollar amount that we get per student does not truly cover costs. So they are pulling back from pre-K and going to focus on before and after care, and we had the decision to make. We could go out and look for another third party to run our pre-K, which I will tell you, a lot of my colleagues are having difficulty in finding those, or we could assume responsibility for our pre-K, and the board has ultimately decided that we will have a district-operated pre-K, which does come with some costs. But we do feel like provides stability for our kids and is worth the increase. This allows for the continuation of our Riverside collaboration. Our transportation contracts came to an end. We are looking at a one-year extension. So that allows for those increases, and it allows for some exterior safety improvements. We need to do some repair work to our sidewalks. There's some trip hazards out there, there's some deterioration, so it does allow for that improvement as well.
is she changing it? You're changing it.
Come on, sorry.
Yes,
So-
come on.
We break our budget down into three parts. We have administrative program and capital. I would remind the board that these percentages, the administrative component is going up 5.8, program 2.2, capital 14.84. Those are not actual increases. We have increases in there, but we had to change some of the budgeting codes, right? Like we had things assigned to program that really should have been in the administrative category. We had items that needed to shift. I will say the capital increase is mostly related to debt service. So that line is pretty accurate, but I will say the shifting that happened here is really, those percentages are flip-flopped really because there were things in the program component that belonged up in administrative. But overall, no matter what, when you shake it out, the total increase we're still looking at is 4.19%.
You're changing
I'm
it.
still changing, all right, revenues. So when we look at our revenues, how are we proposing and how are we looking at funding our increases? Real property tax, we're looking at a 4.14%. That is our tax cap calculation this year. I have shared with you previously, and I will share with you again, our tax cap calculation ebbs and flows. Last year was at 0.24, this year it's at 4.14. What I would ask of the community is this, is we do everything we can to respect the tax cap. When we look at a 0.24, that's to be brought forth. This year it is a little bit higher, right? So I would just ask the community to keep in mind, some years it's higher, some years it's lower, and we'll have a history of where we've been with tax cap, so you can see that it truly does ebb and flow. We have our pilots in here, you're gonna see an increase in pilot, if the soldier on, comes on the books. Our interest and earnings are up. Our commissions, those remain flat, minus like building use fees. Our refund from the prior year. So BOCES refunds us money at the end of the year. We get that money. We don't know what it's going to be, so we typically keep that pretty flat. We don't have a lot of control over what that number is going to be. When we look at tuitions from other schools, this is the tuitions from the Riverside Collaborative. In 24-25, we estimated about 650. I will say we were conservative. We didn't know how our seats were going to fill. We just didn't. So we left some room. We didn't want to be in a spot. We promised you this would not go at a cost to taxpayers. So when we built this budget, we were conservative. Now we have a sense of what it looks like. And that is where we are. That's what we're looking at for tuitions for next school year. It's about $700,000 to cover costs. Miscellaneous gifts is about the same. State aid and BOCES, the only increase you're going to see there is the increase in foundation aid. As I shared with you, we feel pretty confident that that is going to remain stable. We still don't have a budget, right? But we do believe that that is going to remain stable. We don't expect to see great variations in there. Our Medicaid money, it looks like a high percentage is down $5,000. We don't collect a lot of money in Medicaid reimbursement. Debt service, I had shared with you. That was a transfer that had happened, and then we are proposing the same level of usage from our fund balances and our reserves from the year prior. I'm going to change it. There we go. Tax cap history. I'm not going to go through the slide in its entirety, but we do have the history of our calculation. It is a state-driven formula. But what I will share from this slide, and this will be available and will be posted on the website for people who would like to look at that more closely, who haven't been through maybe some of the other presentations. But what I will share with you is in 21-22, our tax cap was at 0.31. That's what we went out at. It was at 2.9, 2.17. It was down to 0.24. That happens when pilots come on, and now we're back up. The reverse happens a little bit here at 4.14%. The other piece that I will add, and to this, is that our growth factor, that is the tax-based growth factor. It's our fourth number down. It was the highest in the county. They look at brick and mortar development. Menands has been growing. We have been doing improvements. We had the highest factor in the county and one of the highest in the state. That helps drive the tax cap. Now the idea is, right, you have growth, it increases the tax cap, but you're also expecting assessments to go up. When assessments go up, our tax rate comes down. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a future slide. But, you know, growth is great, and that's where we're at, right? That's where we want to be. We want to be in a thriving community. So, but that does wind up calculating into our tax cap calculation. I was going to speak a little bit about the Riverside Collaborative because now we've been ending the year, we have a better sense. When we projected last year, right? When we had this conversation last year, we had not hired our staff. So what we do when we make our calculations is we assume every person we're going to hire comes out with family health insurance. We have to, right? We can't run the risk. Now we have a much better sense of where people are. So we started this conversation in 23. We knew our kids in the K-2 program were moving up. We knew that 5 were going to age out and that they were going to move into the 3-5 program. And this would allow us, this collaborative would allow us to keep our students here and offset the costs without increasing our costs to taxpayers. As I had shared in the previous presentation, we hired a physical therapist, an OT, a speech therapist. We had hired 2 teachers. We hired aides for those classrooms. They require a lot of staff. These programs are both academic and social needs, and we continue to look at future programs like the 6-8 program. So this budget supports that, both from a personnel perspective and then the revenues that we gain as well. When we look at the financial review, the revenue is going to be estimated to be higher than we originally thought. We left a vacancy in the classroom. We didn't know if kids moved in, we were going to be able to fill them. So our revenues, we haven't had an empty seat all year. We just haven't. So our revenues are going to come in a little bit higher than we had planned. It gave us the ability to hire full-time staff to provide related services. We know when we have full-time staff, we provide stability to our students. That's just the fact. When we have part-time staff, that's when we start to see turnover. And when we have contracted staff, we even see more turnover. This collaborative has allowed us to serve them in this building. And if we have increased needs in other places, we have the staff on hand to address it. And then the tuition that is charged to the districts this year is going to be slightly lower. We committed to at-cost tuition. That is what we committed, and they committed the same thing to us. So now that we have a better sense of the staff that we have, we are looking at lowering the tuition a little bit because we, not everybody's okay, right? Like, so, and that brings our tuition calculations down. So those will go down a little bit, but it certainly is not going to cover the increased costs. So a breakdown of what that looks like. This is what we had pre-collaborative. We had one classroom for a total of $198,369. We added the following staff with a total cost of $500,223. The difference between the one classroom and the three was $301. And we hired, some people come in sometimes we hire somebody who has a ton of experience. Sometimes we hire people that are fresh out of school, right? And we had some of that. We hired some highly experienced people. We had some people who came right out of school. So those fluctuations impact costs. So the district budgeted about $600,000 in revenue. The actual figure will be closer to $800,000. We made an adjustment on this slide. We have typically been talking about $150,000 home, right? It's like this number. That's not the median value of a home. So we reached out and we looked at 250, and Joanne did the calculations on that. So what does this mean to the average taxpayer? So what we are looking at is a $26.47 increase per month as we go into next school year. And I will tie this back to part of the reason why the board made the decision, right, to go out at a lower rate for the building project is because our tax cap number calculations sometimes result in these costs of $26 a month, right? I don't think it would be financially prudent to go out with this, like, let's say these are our numbers in 2029, and then add on the building cost as well. So this is what we're looking at per month. It's a difference of about $317.67. The library, we have their numbers here for you as well. They are looking at about a $39 increase, or $3.28 per month. The library will come and speak in depth at our budget hearing in May. We share this just because we do run their vote. We have the information. They appreciate us putting it out there as soon as we can and start to get the message out. So that's what we're looking at for the library. And I will add here, we don't get our assessment values until the summer. So if assessments go up, our rate of 4.15, or the rate goes down. Okay, the tax rate will go down. If assessments decrease, the rate then goes up. It's inverse, right? So just keep that in mind. We take our best guess right now. We do the best that we can, and then when we get those assessments in July and August, that's when we actually have a firm number. But we're required to go out in May, right? So it's just the way the school fiscal year operates. We go out in May, we get the best, the best estimate that we can provide, and then we make those adjustments. Mrs. Brown, would you add anything to that?
The only thing I will clarify is that the 4.14 is the actual increase in dollars on the levy. So that's the dollars. That's what drives that tax rate. So the 4.14 will still be the increase in the levy, but if the assessments come in higher, that tax rate, that 30.712449 will go down. So our taxpayers will pay less than what we are anticipating right here. If they go up, if their assessments go down, it's not going to be good. Payments go up, but we don't anticipate this year. So I just wanted to clarify that 4.14 is the new dollars that we're going to raise.
Thank you. So this is the slide that the board had asked for, and they asked for a 3-year comparison. So there's a lot of information on here, so I'll start to break it down for you. The first one is we took our big categories. Okay, so like substitute teachers aren't in here. Okay, we took the big bucket categories for you to look at a comparison from year to year. So when we look at instructional salaries, 3.2, 3.2, and it was at 2.6. Okay, so this year we're looking at a decrease of 0.99%. From 23 to 24, though, it was an increase. This is what we wanted to look at, right? That increase of actual money. This was $620,000 increase. Keep in mind, we brought staff back in from ESSER and ARC grants, and we added the collateral, right? So that was a pretty big jump, but those are related to those. When we look at non-instructional salaries. They're up 17.08%. What I will say to you is this, we had to shift people. So aides, when we planned the collaborative, everything went into one budget fund. We had one bucket of money, right? That we were talking about last year to bring on the collaborative. That included instructional and non-instructional people. They were all grouped in one place. Aides are not instructional. They get paid. We have the teacher retirement system and the employment, the ERS. We have TRS and ERS for instructional and non-instructional. Aides, OT, and PT all shifted from instructional to non-instructional. That's what that percentage increase is. Our teachers are not looking at a decrease in money, and we are not looking at cutting staff. It is the leveling of where people needed to go into their proper places. Once we knew who we had, Joanne put people in instructional that need to go in instructional, non-instructional went non-instructional, and we broke that grouping out. We didn't do it for you originally because we hadn't hired them yet. So that is what those percentages reflect. For equipment, we're looking at an increase of about you had an increase of 9.22% year to year, right?
That's over 2 years though, right?
2024, you want to go in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, let me talk about one column at a time. So I apologize. So let me talk about 24 to 20 from last year to this year first, what we're looking at this year. So when we look at instructional salaries, we're looking at a decrease of 31,863. Like I had shared, we did some reconfiguring there. So you have a 23% change. Here, we're looking at an increase. We're going from 24 to 25, 25 of 230 again. That's people getting into the right buckets. Okay? We are not proposing significant changes in this budget presentation. For equipment, we're looking at a decrease of about $3,500. It's 2.85. It's not a significant change, but we're looking at a decrease of about $3,500. When we look at contractual, that includes things like transportation, it's up 9.17%. Materials and supplies, we're keeping pretty flat. Tuitions, I shared with you, they're going to come down a little bit because our real costs are coming down. So that is what that decrease is. BOCES is staying relatively flat. Debt service, you're going to see the big increase there of 17.66%. That is why that capital line went up so much. And then benefits, we're looking at an increase of about 5.27%. We are looking at significant health increases this year. It's just every school district around us are looking at significant health increases. We have looked at different options. We've looked at consortiums. There's a consortium called Caption. A lot of school districts enter. We can't get in. We don't have 100 people. So that's the requirement there. We looked at the county consortium. The plans that they offer don't meet our contractual obligations. The plans that they do offer that would meet our contractual obligations, we have to have a better rate here. So it doesn't make sense for us to do that. So benefits really is going to be an area that we continue to look at. When we look at our spending, because we're looking at proposed spending, when we look at 23, 24 to 24, 25, where we believe we're going to be change in actual spending, you know, we're looking at an increase of 620. That's the programming. So this is the increase that we're looking at this year. This is the increase that we had the year before. Our non-instructional is up. Equipment was up. Keep in mind, we added equipment to our budget to bring on the special education collaborative. A lot of the kids need iPads. We needed new furniture. So there was an equipment increase there. Contractual was only up 2.44%. We were under contract back then. We look at materials and supplies. We did increase materials and supplies. A piece of that, again, was related to the collaborative. The other piece was teacher budgets had been relatively low for a long time. Teachers needed some stuff. So we looked at increasing it for a period of time. Our tuitions were down 2.24%. Again, this was pre-collaborative. BOCES was down 4.66%. Debt service was up 15.81%, and our health benefits were up 15.62%. So I share that with you. That was the percent from the previous year if you want to look at percentages, and this is the percent where we are now. We'll bring this slide back up should you have questions, and I knew this was something that the board wanted to take a look at that is new to the presentation tonight. Next steps, April 23rd, that is tonight, the board will adopt the 25-26 budget. Once you do that, that triggers many steps for us. We then need to submit the property tax report card to the state education department. Petitions are due here to Trish O'Connell by April 28th.
You said that date already passed.
No, we have.
21st.
No, so the petitions to run for the board, if somebody wants to write, what, they were due yesterday? They were due yesterday? I thought these were petitions for the ballot.
For propositions.
Okay, propositions.
Proposition, and if they wanted to do that.
Absolutely. So our board cycle has closed, but we can have propositions added.
I see.
That is due.
Okay.
Public information must be available by May 1st. We have a binder that we have here. We have hard copies. It's online, of course. We have hard copies here. Last year, we put a copy down in the village offices and in the library as well. We will have our official budget hearing on May 7th. We will be asking the library to join us for that hearing. And then our budget vote is right around the corner on Tuesday, May 20th, here at Mann School from noon to 8 p.m. So with all of that being said, questions, the board has decided that given the nature of a budget presentation, that they will take public comment related to the board presentation. Now you don't have to wait until the end of the meeting. I would ask Bill first for comments or questions from the board before we move to the public.
The only one I have is when does the budget newsletter go out? Because we do that also, right?
Yeah, so we're working currently on the budget newsletter. It's supposed to drop in the mail the day after the budget hearing under regulation.
Got it.
So
May.
it'll be printed and ready to go, and it'll drop into mail on May 8th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I will say, once we have it, though, we do mail scripted. Like, right, I remember we went back.
Last year it was, yeah,
Is it coming? Is it coming? We will put it online as well.
yep.
So while people are waiting, that'll be available to a PDF version of it. Other questions?
I know Patrick had a few questions, but, wasn't here tonight. I think the slide that had the past year's presentation on it will be helpful for him. So if there's anything else that he has up in the future, I'll make sure
Absolutely.
he brings that up.
With this slide, given that this was some new information, were there any questions?
Everybody good?
Yep.
Questions from the public, online or in person?
We're good?
So then that will conclude the budget workshop, and we'll resume our. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nava. Actually, you're up again. We're gonna ask for your reports.
All right, so there's something has to come up. All right, I'm gonna call the next piece. So up next, under superintendent's comments, the first thing we have for you is the energy study. We have Mr. Fostera. He is joining us to review the energy study that we had completed. Mr. Scott Wolf remains in the audience as well, just because a lot of these items are directly related to items that we talked about in the building condition survey, and things of that nature. So come on up, Mr. Fostera. Trisha's going to, Mr. Foster. He's from Fostera. It's Mr. Ben Foster.
That's confusing.
So here's a full copy of the survey.
Thank you.
Go from there. Thank you. You're welcome.
Let me make it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just say this one.
Ready to go?
We're ready when you are.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I'll tell you, I'm humbled and proud to be here with you all tonight. It seems the care and passion and the diligence that you all do on the budgeting side of the students and the feedback is really hard for me, so thanks for having us. We're really excited to work with CF Arch over the last year on projects like this one around state. This particular effort was requested last year through CF Arch, our partners, to look at solar opportunities here at the school, because there's a lot of interest in on-site solar to reduce net energy usage and greenhouse gas emissions. So what I want to do is just quickly go over the study, some of the findings. From a timing perspective, we started last November. We were here on site. We have 5 tasks essentially that we were here to complete, and the funding was provided, or being provided by the next service with no cost for the district for this work. As long as their requirements we'll talk about. The scope of the work was primarily task 3 for your interest here, which is renewable energy systems, which is looking at solar, and we'll talk about that first, but we are providing additional context, the energy study. And because of the work that's happening in parallel that we talked about earlier, especially with heating and mechanical systems, we also looked at some alternatives that might be of higher efficiency than just a like-for-like replacement on domestic hot water, which is the hot water systems that you saw earlier, as well as some of the HVAC solutions in the gym and some of the expanded classroom area. So let's go to page 17. If you're on page 17, that's the solar. So I'm gonna jump right into the thing that started this project. What we looked at was a number of different options for solar on the school. We talked to CS Arch about where the best part might be on the facility itself, which would be on the roof over the gym. And I just look for it. You can just scroll down to the sure. What we looked at first was where on the school building could the roof, because that's usually an easy place to install. It's not being used for other purposes. With the gym roof being newly replaced, fairly newly replaced, and no any skylight rooftop units, that was identified initially as a really good location for potential solar. In addition, we looked at ground mounted solar, and we considered the opportunity to put in what's called a solar carport. So over this the lane that is closest to the school, if we would put a solar carport in that area, basically an elevated structure that has just a cantilever beam that comes out over the post that would rise from basically from the island there. Then you can put in another decent sized array to add to the array on top of the gym, and then offset more energy. And then also that particular site would be what they call EV ready. So because the electrical infrastructure has to be added anyway, if you wanted to then on those posts that are coming out from the ground, you could pre-wire those for EV charging stations at some point in the future if you wanted to do that. And basically no additional cost through state programs. So we figured that those two areas might be good to recommend and consider. In aggregate, the total size of the system between the two arrays is about 125 kilowatts in all, and that could offset about 45% or so of your annual electricity load before any other measures go in place. If you add new HVAC equipment, the expanded classrooms and others, or some of the other recommendations, that may increase your total electricity demand. But that could offset a decent percentage overall. So we're excited about that. We look at costs as well for the system. Look at average cost for installing this sort of system on a school district here in New York. We look at averages on a national basis, as well as some of our own experience to see the total price that might be before any incentives and rebates. And that ends up being a little bit under the total cost. Right there. Thank you. Sorry, let me can't go. I appreciate your help. So about 125 kilowatts DC in total size. The projected cost would be about 440,000, 436,744. And as you guys see over to the dollar, so I'll be specific. There is a solar investment tax credit of 30% that as a nonprofit you can still qualify for. There's a big asterisk next to that the federal level, there's potentially changes that may happen, but for now that is still in effect. There would be a slight O&M cost just to clean it and maintain it and make sure you have a modern system. But the potential electricity offset, as I mentioned, about 44% on an annual basis, and that would save about $17,900 a year on electricity costs because of the electricity that would be generated here. So net, that's a big savings. And there may also be some financing opportunities. So we look at a number of financing potential. There are great loans that can be made from certain entities in the state or others for school districts that could spread that over a time period. There are also third-party financing that could be available as well. So this could either be something in the future. I know from a budget perspective, that's not part of your current budget, but there may be other opportunities. So this is part of the recommendation. We recommend you pursue this if you can find some additional sources of funding to go forward with it.
Before you move off the solar, I have some questions. Could you go back to the map? So I was wondering, were the other parts of the roof not suitable? Because I got to imagine that the carport is more expensive just with the infrastructure on the ground than it would be to just mount it on the roof? Was there not enough space in between, you know, the HVAC systems or whatever was up there? Because some of those other roofs are newer also, but you know, you can see there's not so much open space up there, but
Right. Good point. And it is more expensive to do ground mount, especially at a carport structure like this.
Yep.
Than it would be on the roof. It is possible to add some additional, at the point you would go out to bid for this, a solar contractor would come in and scope that out to see if there's some additional capability. We're trying to continue to be more conservative in
Mhm.
terms of the size. There are some regions, if they are in good shape, that could be used, but the more you stretch those out, the longer the wire runs are between the individual panels and where they connect together, they combine, and then we have to connect into an inverter. And you have to get on losses. So if you had a string of them that sort of went all the way down the middle, you'd lose some production and so there's some additional costs in the wire. So if we could find a couple of contained spots,
Mhm.
maybe in these areas, maybe on the new section that got built on the roof there, that's fairly close, that could be a good addition as well.
Yeah, okay, but those kind of details would be worked out with the vendor, you think,
Yeah, absolutely.
when we get to that point? Okay.
And we could help with that. We do that sort of work in terms of making sure, just like CSR done the other subcontractors.
Okay, and then my second question was just, I did notice that it didn't cover, you know, all of the electrical costs. Is that because just based on the credits you think we can get, the amount of money we thought the project was gonna cost? Or is it just, like, you know, why didn't you, for example, just go out and say, we're gonna try and put enough solar panels up there to cover all of our electrical needs?
Question. Our approach is, again, trying to be conservative in terms of what's likely to occur. We could say this is like, if you were to maximize it across the entire landscape on the roof, could you get to a higher? Yes, you could. Typically 80–90% is a good range to stop because you don't know in any given year how much electricity they could use or other.
You don't wanna make more than you're
Yeah,
gonna
you want
use,
more.
and be paying for
Way
it.
down.
Right, right.
You still get some, but a lot less. So I think that the potential, and especially if it's in a year from now, the technology continues to improve in terms of productivity. Even when we did studies 2 or 3 years ago, you're getting 20% more out for the same size, right, as it were before. So I would say this is likely to be more. What we like to recommend, though, are things that at the end you're going to have, you know, maybe a better experience than trying to overestimate and then and install them and says, well, for this reason and that reason, it's not going to work. But we did want to throw in a blended system between the ground mount because we know there's increasing interest in EVs and EV charging potential for vehicles or teachers or visitors. And then that's something that could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So, on page 19, you say, you know, in the tabulation, you say payback period is 19.8 years.
Correct.
So do you have like how long is this? Do you have like a maintenance plan? How long does?
What's the lifetime of it?
Yeah, lifetime, yeah.
And the lifetime is usually 25 years. The warranty for the output is usually 25 years. The degradation, what's called the annual degradation, is about 0.5% a year of the solar output. That's been factored in as well. So over time, the solar becomes a little bit less productive. The maintenance, the reason why there's an O&M in here is because if you have a maintenance contract with a third party, you can do routine cleanings and changing like air filters if there's one in the inverter or maintenance activities to keep it going.
So there is a replacement maintenance.
Yeah, there's maintenance and then there's replacement that needs to happen. That's built into the overall project cost.
Okay.
So you'd expect it to last 25 years. And
so it will cover the payback period. It will cover the payback.
That's right. Okay. There are some, if it was a private system, there would be some additional tax benefits that would reduce that further. We were also somewhat conservative in terms of your electricity costs. So the other thing is electricity costs will continue to increase. And so that increases the value of that production in a given year. And so that's another area where you might have some upside over time, essentially with payback over. There have been in the past programs from EPA and from NYSERDA and others to help school districts and others to maybe install more solar and to add some additional layers of incentives. We did not factor those in. This is not currently published, but that may happen as well. And by having this study, one of the good things is from NYSERDA's perspective, any incentives now that are available for either solar or especially for the building system and upgrades or all building systems, you have to have the study done before you can have it awarded. So the good thing is now you have that ready, you can say, okay, now we're going to talk for grants that come up instead of having to scramble to do it and study it for them. So that's part of the reason why they have this two-step approach. You get the study done for free, and then that way it qualifies you to get grants later, because then they know you've looked at considerations.
For non-residential installations, have you seen that payback period on average, does it usually hover around 20 years or so?
If we're not commercial, essentially, it's further.
Okay.
This is a little bit longer because, as you asked earlier, the costs are a little bit higher in total because we've got the ground mounted systems. And so that adds costs, both structural and installation. So I think if it was just rooftop only, you might be able to get 50-ish, maybe a little bit less on average.
Okay.
Now with tariffs and other things, it would be a lot.
Right. The whole game changes. Yeah.
Some good, some bad. You know, a lot of more and more things have been made in the US, so there are a lot of competition for it. You know. Any other questions on the solar?
No.
I want to touch base on one other component, or two other components, I guess, of the study is we looked at the HVAC systems in summary. I read it down in the middle. So page 21. So we looked at the boiler upgrade or replacement, and because that was a system at large that didn't need to be replaced overall, but instead what we looked at there was in conjunction with the work that's already part of the budget we saw earlier today. There's a number of upgrades to the HVAC system, the heating system, and the cooling systems in 13 of those classrooms, and then also for the gym, because the gym needs AC, which does not have now. So we looked at some alternatives with CSR and some experience they have in high performance all electric HVAC system, heat pump systems, to see what would be possible in terms of if instead of that system being replaced for a natural gas fired heater for that, and then also as a heat pump, then you have the AC services that would be available to improve, the cooling for all the classrooms in the gym. We did a cost estimate in aggregate, which is about $1 million, 1.2 million total. But that's everything, which you already have a budget. So part of the thing is the way that NYSERDA wants us to do the calculation is if you did it from scratch, where those systems are near the end of the life, or they have to be upgraded, or you have requirements for air conditioning, for student comfort. And so it's not really sort of a fair apples-to-apples comparison, because that's not what you need if you're going to do the replacement. There are also incentives available at the state level for if you go for a replacement of fossil fuel powered HVAC systems to all electric that can help reduce that. And so the net incremental cost to do it with a high performance heat pump right now is estimated at under $60,000 above what we've already have budgeted today. So what we talked about with CSR and this is that as this moves forward and they go to procurement, you heard about that next year, or go through that process. Now we have a specification, so they can look for like what would we call the bid alternate to see if the primary approach they already have approved could work, but then is there an alternate that might give you more energy savings or better footprint, or might be able to capture some incentives and get a better outcome from that system. We also then looked at domestic hot water, which is in the plan as well. So there's a like for like replacement in there to upgrade because they're at the end of their life cycle. So we looked at heat pumps for those as well. So because it's not the hot water load you have here isn't as significant as it might be at high school. There's some other work that bigger cafeteria operations and more gym and showers and things that would be higher load for hot water. That there are some opportunities right now, and those prices continue to come down in a really good way to do domestic hot water, so you can replace those in a different way. Because also the temperature set point that you have is only about 125, 120 to 126 degrees for the hot water in there, of course, because you can only be too hot because in case you get hurt. Then you would then that makes it easier, even easier for a heat pump system. If you're trying to, if it's commercial, you're trying to get up to boiling temperature, 180 or higher, that's more of a challenge for the heat pumps, but then it's at a level where the systems that are available today at this exact scale that you would need are available. So again, as a full replacement, it's more expensive, but if you subtract out what you already have budgeted, then the incremental is even lower, and there's some incentives that are going back to help reduce that inventory. So we think in aggregate, between all three, it's about $500,000 net of incentives. Incremental above what you already have budgeted. Of course, the bulk of that is coming from the solar project. The other two, in combination with Scott and the team at CSR, is that, this is now part of an opportunity going forward to consider for, higher efficiency, higher performance systems here on those systems that are already part of the budget. So we didn't want to mess with the budget cycle because that was already well underway. We want to be able to layer on that and add value and prove. And sure, it's funding, will give you some opportunities or some alternatives to consider.
Great.
So all the details are in here. It's labeled final draft because NYSERDA is doing their final review as well. They do a QA review and everything, so we might have a couple of tweaks that we'll make. And send you the final. All the details are in the report. And the way it's structured is it's a little, again, formulation, because that's what NYSERDA wants to see them. But we don't miss anything. Upset about that, but just it starts with what do we do from site analysis and utility bills, and then description of the HVAC solutions, and then we added in domestic hot water, which was not part of the original scope. I'm excited to do that because it's important. And then the real one system. Then the fourth one is a little bit more approachable, I'll say. We'll describe how it fits in and what are some of the advantages and benefits to these approaches, some considerations as well. And we'll find these opportunities. Any other question there? That's all the main points.
Going back to the solar usage, that's based off of current numbers today?
Correct.
So the projection going out for the savings and the, what was it?
The 19.8 year payback.
The payback, but the savings projected off that is off of today's numbers, right?
Right. That's not today's. So we expect on an annual basis that number, that's like the first year would be about $18,000.
Yeah, so you put in an inflation factor for when you're considering the payback period, you put it in inflation factor for how much electricity costs.
Right now, yes, it's forecasted for an increased average utility rate, increase over time, and then the degradation loss of the solar.
So they're already taking that into account.
But if the district wants to move forward with heat pumps, our electric use is going to be higher, correct?
Right. So this number here was the 44%. If you did heat pumps, that would be a smaller percentage of the total, which is also why being able to generate the electricity on site is important, because that the total usage goes up, you have something to offset it.
Right.
But the cost savings won't change because we're still making the same number of kilowatts or whatever it is every year. And we're still paying when we're making them ourselves instead of buying them from National Grid. So the amount of cost savings per year will not change.
The cost savings wouldn't change, the electricity offset would be smaller.
Right.
But that may give you, again, if, when you go to next year, begin the procurement process, that may give you some additional motivation to go for more. Bigger system, right?
But the payback period isn't going to be
and
of the system that they quoted.
Energy efficiency numbers that we put in there. It would be a significant bump in electricity, but it would reduce natural gas. So there's also additional savings.
Great. Anybody have anything, questions or comments or anything?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Is that all you had, or you have anything else?
No, that's all I have. I have some updates later, but I'm stuck in.
Let's move this along then. Business office non-action items. February warrants fund EC 46, $1,056, and fund A 45, $72,981.50. Non-action items, budget transfers under $10,000. Has everyone had a chance to look at that, and are there any questions? Business office non-action items, appropriation status report. Has everyone had a chance to look at that? And does anybody have any questions?
No.
Business office non-action items revenue status report. Has everyone had a chance to look at that?
Yeah,
Yep.
just got that paper.
Let's move right into, business office, action items. Treasurer's report. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the treasurer's report for March 2025.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. Budget office, business office action items, budget transfers over $10,000. I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the authorization of the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the enclosed budget transfers over $10,000.
Second.
Were there any questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Business office action items, disposals, items for disposal. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the disposals as listed.
Second.
What's the Cisco phone?
Cisco's the company.
Yeah,
Oh, it's just a
Just-
brand. Oh, I thought
yeah.
it was like.
like that phone right there.
Yeah, it's just a hardwire phone.
All right, I got it. Thank you. There's a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. Business office action items, contracts for approval. Can we get a resolution, please?
Let's see what.
Nice. No,
You got,
no,
oh.
okay, but no, yeah, sorry. Be resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District hereby approves the following contracts as listed A through D.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. Item E is business office action items, donations. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the donations as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do I-
Opposed?
I don't know if I need to abstain. I'm on the board of the PTA.
Yeah, you do,
Okay.
because you made the donations.
I'm gonna abstain from this vote then.
I'll recall the vote then. All in favor?
Well, yeah, I just said I'll abstain. I didn't vote aye.
Perfect. Thank you, Courtney. And thank everyone else for their donations for the school, please. Business office action items, property tax report card. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education, of the Manans Union Free School District approve the 2025-2026 property tax report card as presented. Be it further resolved that the business manager is directed to submit the property tax report card to the State Education Department by the end of the next business day following this approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. Item G is business office action items, corrective action plan for the school year ending June 30th, 2024, external audit. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the corrective action plan for the external audit.
Second.
Were there any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. Board of Education action items, the Manans Union Free School District Public Library vote and elections, May 20th, 2025, election officials. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District appoint the following as Board of Registration Selection Officers for the May 20th, 2025 budget vote and elections.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 8 is policies. First reading of policies, resolution, please.
Be it resolved that the Manans Union Free School District Board of Education hereby approve the first reading of the policies listed below. Drug-free workplace, rights of the employee to express breast milk in the workplace, and student transportation.
Second.
Were there any questions about these?
Yeah, has anything come up, anything on these, you're on the committee, right?
I'm on the committee. We talked quite a bit about student transportation. There's a lot that is spelled out in law that we talked about, and didn't make any large changes, I don't think, from what it had been. But if anyone hasn't given that a look, they should before the final reading. Yeah, that was it. Oh, the drug-free workplace one, it says in there that we need to have a drug-free program, which we do not, but are working on developing with Needham Risk Management. So we included it in the policy that we should have one because we will have one. And we are required to have one and should have one.
Okay, perfect. There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution passes. First reading, second reading of policy or final reading of policies. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, approve the final readings of the following policies, A through B as listed, artificial intelligence and information security breach and notification.
There were no changes from
From
the
the
first
first
readings.
reading.
Anybody have any questions on these final policy? There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 9, the 25-26 Manans Union Free School District budget adoption. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District adopt the proposed 2025-2026 budget. The amount is $12,976,198.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution passes. This brings us to our annual BOCES of election budget vote. Item A is BOCES board election. Can I get a resolution, please?
Yep. Resolved that the Manans Union Free School District Board of Education hereby cast its vote for the following candidates to fill 4 vacant seats on the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Albany, Schoharie, Schenectady, Saratoga Counties for the term of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028. A, resolved that the Board of Education cast its vote for the election of M. Indica J. Cox, Home District Schoharie Central School District, as a member of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Albany, Schoharie, Schenectady, Saratoga Counties.
Hold on one second. Is this the vote we need to call the roll for each individual?
each
Or are we
one?
gonna do at the end or call them? Or are you gonna call a roll now for each individual candidate?
You should do each individual.
For each
seat.
All right, so I'll leave it at that. So I've done the resolution for A. Get a second for A.
Second.
probably.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Continue on.
If you're okay with it, I'm just gonna do all the resolutions and he'll do all the seconds. Is that okay?
Yep, perfect.
Resolved that the Board of Education cast its vote for the election of Heather Soraka, Home District Waterville City School District, as a member of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Albany, Schoharie, Schenectady, Saratoga Counties.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Item C, resolved that the Board of Education cast its vote for the election of Matthew Tedeschi, Home District Fern Knox Westerlo Central School District, as a member of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Albany, Schoharie, Schenectady, Saratoga Counties.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution passes.
Item D, resolved that the Board of Education cast its vote for the election of Bruce Tryon, Home District Cobleskill Richmond Central School District, as a member of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Albany, Schoharie, Schenectady, Saratoga Counties.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So we have 4 votes positive for each member. Great. And the BOCES administrative budget vote is next. Can I get a resolution there, please?
Resolved that the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Albany, Schoharie, Schenectady, Saratoga Counties be authorized to expend the sum set forth in the administrative budget document in the total amount of $15,674,431 during the school year 2025 through 2026, and to raise such sum by assessments to component school districts, non-component school districts, other BOCES, and other sources as required by law.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. Item 11 is personnel matters, personal agenda. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the updated personal agenda items as attached.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. Number 5. CSE, CPSE recommendations. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District hereby approves the CSE, CPSE recommendations as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. Substitute teachers fully cleared. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approves the substitute teachers for the 24-25 school year A through L as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. Item 13, student matters. A, enrollment update. The total enrollment for the 24-25 school year to date is 310. That's a good number. Administrative updates, principals' comments. Mrs. Wiley.
Hello.
Mia? I'm not sure if last time we met, we talked about the eighth graders were going to Tech Valley. I think we did, but I'm not sure, so I just threw it back up here. They went, eighth grade got tour of Tech Valley. The staff enjoyed our kids there, the kids learned a lot about it. I think it's a place you gotta go and experience. So they did that and a lot of good feedback from the kids and from the staff. Our parents' night out, PTA had our parents' night out. We tried some different things. We had the movie in the gym. We had some pizza in the cafeteria and lots of kids attended and another great PTA successful event. So our eighth graders could not stop at basketball. They were not done. We created a monster here. They wanted to play kickball. They have capture the flag in the works, and they would like basketball part too. I've never seen a group that wins and says, we want a rematch. First was want a rematch, we're tired. But we can't back now. So we played kickball. One day, we had all the middle school came to the gym, and eighth grade played against the faculty. I will tell you one thing, our eighth graders love our faculty. And I'm looking at Mr. Herman because they just adore their middle school teachers, and they want to spend time with them. They just asked for a middle school fun night if they could have time with just them and their teachers. Like no one else there, just them and their teachers spending a half hour together before everyone else shows up. So they just adore their staff, and it says a lot to our staff that they feel that way about them and they don't want to leave them. So that's a good thing. We had our superintendent's conference day, and we spent some time doing our restorative justice work. So we started to dig into our tier 3 work around restorative justice, which is our conflict resolution circles. So when conflicts happen in the building, we are looking to solve them through circling up and processing that conflict as a way of identifying how conflict impacts people involved in the conflict. So the staff engaged in that, learned what that process is like, and we have started to implement those practices here in the building. St. Patrick's Day Parade, we had our baton twirlers in there, and Nurse Rosie led them through the parade. They had a great day for it and enjoyed the time on the parade and practicing. Beauty and the Beast was amazing. Thank you, Ms. O'Connell and Ms. Hayes and everyone else that participated in it, those who had kids in it, all the staff supported. It was such a wonderful event. I want to just give, an extra shout out on one of the days our mics struggled. We had a problem with our mic hookup, and the kids were amazing. We had, a 30-minute delay?
Yes.
And the kids were backstage and had to kind of just wait for us to fix it. Eventually, the fix was not how they practiced, and they made it work. And what a testament to the students, to the faculty that pulled that off, and they were just awesome. If you didn't get a chance to see it, you missed it, but it is online. There is a YouTube video of it, and they did great. Fourth grade and fifth grade went to see I'm sure if you were in their age, you probably remember the song, If I'm Just a Bill by the Schoolhouse Rock, right? So they were doing that at Cohoes Music Hall. So they went to go see a play about how a bill becomes a law, and they did the whole Schoolhouse Rock, I Am a Bill song and all that. So it was interesting because the kids had never heard it. It was something, I know I grew up with it. I don't know if you guys did, but yeah, so they enjoyed it. Our living graveyard is our, it's an annual thing at this point. Our fifth grade puts on a living graveyard and it's all the explorers. It's part of their culminating project for their explorer unit. So the students make these gravestones and they're able to present, if you walk up to them, about the life of the person on that gravestone. So the students did a great job. They worked collaboratively with the librarian and with the class teachers. So they did a lot of work to prep for it. A lot of research went into it, and then they do their presentations here in the library. We had a couple of students win an essay contest. So this is the Grand Lodge Americanism Essay Contest winners, Adira and Umair in 8th grade. They entered the contest on their own. They had to answer the question, what does patriotism mean to them? And Mr. Schweitzer supported them through that, and they ended up winning an award and I think either a monetary or a gift card as a result. Congratulations to Adira and Umair and Mr. Schweitzer. Our very own Officer Stone was given a award as instructor of the year for his work around LEAD. So he has really dug into that, and the kids love having him in the classroom, and they have a great time, and they seem to be learning a lot from him. And he is just a great addition to, not addition, he's been here a couple years now, but he's awesome, and our kids really appreciate having him here. PT Spring Fest was another success. I think the highlight that I heard about was the animals. So when I wasn't able to make this, but when I came back in, there was lots of talk about the animals. So the kids definitely enjoyed it. They were inside for some of it.
It was
'cause I think
cold and rainy, but
rainy.
we were in the cafeteria, we did a ton of crafts.
Yeah.
The animals were in the cafeteria, the kids just thought it was awesome. He had, 30 kids and it rapt attention. It was a lot of fun.
And our upcoming events are, tomorrow is our kindergarten meeting. So our incoming kindergartners will meet their future kindergarten teachers, do a little bit of work with them. Nurse Rosie and I will be meeting with parents to get to know them and see what they need in order to make their way into our building as smoothly as possible. So that's happening tomorrow all day. Brooks Barbecue on Friday. So if you want to come and pick up some chicken, there is a way to just walk in, I believe, Mr. Herman, right?
There's plenty available.
Okay.
Good.
Our ELA exam and math exams are coming up, so ELA is next week. I did just push something out on Parent Square. I sent home a letter just kind of letting parents know what's going on with the exams, when they are, ways they can help out. And this year we sent home with each student a little cardstock, and we're asking parents to write a little note of encouragement for their kid, put it in an envelope, and we're gonna put that on the kid's desk right before they start the exam. So they can just have a little encouragement before they get going. It takes a lot of focus for them to sit that long and do those exams. We just want them to do their best. And I know a word from parents would encourage them to do that. Our middle school fun night is coming up, so they are excited for that. I know our 8th graders are helping run that. They're working with PTA to run that event. Teacher Appreciation Week is that whole week of 6th through the 9th, so we will be celebrating them and partying the week away. And then we have our math exams as well. Any questions before we?
Thank you very much.
Although I don't see multicultural fair, but maybe that's
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's after it might be after the next, yeah. It is coming up fast though. Let's see, May 9th. Put it on your calendars.
Superintendent comments?
So we had the opportunity to attend the BOCES dinner and the annual budget. It's always a lovely night. Patrick had his first night of experiencing that. The kids cook and serve as the kids who attend CTE. And then BOCES presents their budget along with getting to hear a little bit from the candidates. So it was a lovely evening. As always, the kids did a great job. They gave the opportunity for a tour of the CTE Center before the dinner again. And then they talked a little bit about the extension project that they're doing to address the long wait lists that they have. They're building near 900 on the other side of the driveway. So they'll be adding some additional sections of CT opportunities, increasing the availability of some of the cosmetology classes. They're adding heavy machinery, things of that nature. So it was a really nice night. And as always, they did a great job. For state and federal updates, the state and the federal updates, they keep coming. I will say the state continues to stand pretty firm behind DEI practices within the state, despite pressures from the federal government to pull back. So that continues to be ongoing. There continue to be challenges around funding and things of that nature. We still have our funding. There has not been any report of loss of funding. We will continue to keep an eye on that from a federal level. But you see the news, the updates come fast and furious. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that.
Saratoga just made the news, right?
Yep.
Yesterday or today?
Saratoga
About their pushback.
they reaffirmed their policies and spoke and said, we're not changing what we're doing. We're going to continue to support trans students. We're going to continue the work that we do around DEI. And unfortunately, their representative has taken a stance that is pretty opposite to where the school district stands. So, I mean, quite honestly, how that plays out will be something to watch. And then last but not least, between our communications person and CS Arch, our project communications are coming pretty near to going out. I took a proof of CS Arch is putting together a display board that will be present within the building about the work that we are going to do. We will be doing a mailer to go home to every family. I took a proof through that today. And then Capital Region BOCES was here filming for a video, and they are working on cutting and putting that together. So those materials will be coming out shortly. They're finalizing the video, finalizing the other materials, and those will be going out separate from our budget newsletter. There is a piece in our budget newsletter, but we are doing an additional mailing above and beyond that as well. And as those come, I will certainly provide copies to the board ahead.
Great.
And then we'll be sharing those pretty widely.
Great. Thank you. When is our next board meeting?
It is
Seven.
7.
Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Canavo. Business managers comments, I'm sorry.
I have three
Last-
comments
Thank you.
from the Board of Education. One of the things we've done recently that we haven't done here since when I was here the first time is done an inventory update. So we are using a service provided by the Quest R3 BOCES. And while they partnered with Utica Mutual, who is our insurance carrier, and they will come in here and do it at what ends up being no cost to us. So they work with the BOCES, will pay a portion of it, and then whatever the aid is, like it's $10,000, the cost of it. So they will only charge us 5, our aid percentage is 50%. We'll pay 5,000. We'll get our aid back next year. We'll submit the $10,000 bill. We'll get the 5,000 in aid, and Utica Mutual pays the rest of it. So it's a net zero cost to the district. That's going to start in June, which gives us the year-end stuff that we need for the financial report, our end-of-year audit. I'm very happy about that. It took a little while to get it, but we're doing it. It's going to start in June and be done, and we'll have the reports ready that we need and an update to all of our buildings, the square footage, outside and inside. It's certainly needed to be done. It should be done every 10 years or so. We're behind, but we're good at getting that done. Grounds update very briefly. I know the board was, we talked a little bit about how do we notify people of how to slow down coming in the main entranceway. Kyle and I met with one of the painting company that did our striping. They're actually going to come in here and they're going to do the decals, slow down 15 miles per hour to come in. And as you round down that main drag where the bus line is. And we just got a price on that, $700. I thought it's extremely reasonable.
Yeah.
It's reflective. We're going to do it yellow, so it really pops at night even. So that, I'm not sure when it will be yet. We just issued the purchase order for that. And then the CREST grant update. As you know, you get that money from the state for the paving reimbursement. I will tell you without any exaggeration, I think I submitted 100 pages of supporting documentation, but I was glad we took our time, we did it. We just got word yesterday that we'll be getting the money hopefully by the end of the month, which is a wonderful thing.
Great.
Because the borrowing that we are in the process of doing now for the project, we did make it callable. I know we've talked about that. So we'll redo that. We'll refinance it next year, and we'll only borrow what we needed. It'll be less the money for the CREST grant, less the $150,000 that we put in the capital fund. So that's a wonderful thing. We're getting the money. I haven't seen it in the account yet, but they said we would get it. So I thought it was a good thing. That's it.
Great. Anybody have any questions? Thank you for getting the striping done in the parking lot. Bothers me how fast people drive through this parking lot. All right, so we're on to miscellaneous. This part of the agenda. Anybody have anything to share with the community, or members of the board want to bring up something to bring up on next month's agenda? Does anybody have anything?
Just, I think this first presentation that Jen did, I think wasn't in the board docs. Can you just add it just in case someone wants to go back and look at it later? I mentioned the Multicultural Fest is next week or next month. I know we're going to meet again before that happens, but only like 2 days before it happens. Jen the PTA president is working really, really hard on that. If anybody, wants to do a table or help out with the event, or just come and see it, it's a lot of fun. It's a big event that's coming up. That's all I have. Baseball season started. Opening day is
Nance baseball opening day, Saturday.
tomorrow, this coming
Might
Saturday.
rain out. If not, it's Sunday. There'll be a,
Come see Manans kids play baseball. Watch the T-ball. It's my favorite thing in the world. Like the kids trying to play T-ball. It's great. Even if they're not your kids, it's hilarious.
Perfect. Anybody else have anything? I don't have anything. We're gonna make a motion to adjourn. We have an executive session we're going to enter. We don't expect to take any action after the executive session. You're more than welcome to stay. We'll come and get you if you want, but
Did you already ask for public comment? I'm sorry.
did I ask for public comment?
You asked us for our comments. I don't know if you asked for public comment.
See what happens, where
they
your
look
glasses,
tapped
public
out when
comment
you should
sessions. During the public comment sessions, members of the community may address the board on agenda and non-agenda items. The board president may limit remarks of individual speakers to a reasonable time. Speakers must identify themselves on topics on which they would like to make the remarks. BOE comments@manans.org for our online viewing. Does anybody have anything?
Nothing online.
I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. We're going to go into executive session. You're more than welcome to stay, but the board does not anticipate taking any action when they come back into public session. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Yes, I will make a motion to enter executive session.
You have to adjourn first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will make a motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to enter executive session to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person, corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So in executive session, we'll start in like 5 minutes.
Yep.
How's that sound?
Perfect.
Stand up, stretch my legs.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to say, I forgot during the public conversation. What you guys were doing, by the way, last year, the whole thing, 100% for what we're gonna do. I think we're doing.
The library will be here.
This is Frank, and this is what-
They're not.